From the time we were children, we all asked the question, what would happen if knights, Vikings, samurai, all those medieval warriors that we knew about growing up ended up fighting each other in a big battle royale? Who would win? During the 2015 E3 presentation of Ubisoft, For Honor was presented to the world for the first time. A big CGI trailer that showed medieval warriors fighting each other in a context like we'd never seen before. And those childish fantasies emerged and bubbled up back to the surface. The gaming sphere was introduced to a new IP for a fighting game with deep lore, incredible interactivity, and the potential for something incredible. But any good fighting game like this needs a backdrop, a context, a lore. From what we understand, the world of For Honor functioned similar to ours up until around the year 1000 AD. At this time, a great global catastrophe hit the world that was known as the Cataclysm. Now, no one is quite sure what caused it. Was it an act of nature, of God, of fate? Whatever the cause, the effects were all too well known. The world was irrevocably altered, moving continents, seas, and land masses about. Tsunamis swallowed whole islands and peninsulas. Earthquakes ravaged the land, ripping open the earth like hungry jaws to devour cities, villages, and nations alike. Where once were lush fields and beautiful rivers and lakes were now magma pits, desolate wastelands, and begotten blighted ruins. And this event struck the whole world. Few survived the cataclysm, and those that did were left with fewer resources than they could manage. A fight for survival began. In the continent known as Heathmore, 3 factions in particular gathered: the Vikings of the Northern Realms, the Knights of the West, and the Samurai, foreign warriors from an island nation who traveled to the eastern lands of Heathmore. These 3 factions began a long and brutal war for land, resources, and control. Neither side would give up or relent, and over 1,000 years of war would see these nations advance, grow, and in the end, forget even their reason for fighting in the first place. For you see, when all else is put aside, when the world has been taken from them, there's only one thing these warriors have left to cling to: honor.
During this time, Ubisoft was at its late golden age, with games such as Assassin's Creed Unity, Far Cry 4, and Watch Dogs all coming out the year prior. A year later at Gamescom, the game was further showcased. It even won the Best PC and Best PS4 Game Award. So expectations of Honor and the perception of Ubisoft were at an all-time high. Until the release in 2017, Ubisoft had an impressive ad campaign, with trailers and promotions, hyping the game up pretty well and bringing attention towards the fighting game community, the Souls-like community, the fantasy community, and the chivalry community.
I originally came to For Honor because all my friends started playing it, and it was just super intriguing. I really got lured in by the guard mechanics and like ledges, the combat style, the mechanics of the game, how it was like super different from every fighting game. You know, my friends had played other games like UFC and all that, but it was still the same fight game style, you know?
The poster boy of For Honor was clear from the get-go. Smash Bros. Has Mario, Street Fighter has Ryu, and For Honor has Warden, which is funny considering he literally isn't even on the cover of the game.
When I saw the Warden character, I immediately just went for it. I just wanted a standard sword, wanted to be a knight. I was even telling my friends about that before we even played it. And when I first started playing Warden, it was just everything I wanted.
I remember seeing a clip where a warden does a charged bash off of some stairs and then locking onto a guy, does a plunge attack while midair and then kills the guy, and there's just nothing the guy could do about it. He just ate it. Man, it was so wacky.
The open beta for the game went online on the 9th February 2017, just a week before the actual game release.
I remember exactly when For Honor was first announced. Me and all my friends, we saw some of the gameplay for the beta and some of the campaign in, I would have to say, early 2016, and we were thrilled. The beta dropped, and it was just so overwhelming at first. Literally everyone that was trying to play that game was just baffled by how cool and how complex it was. as the beta started moving on, it started getting, a little more difficult. People were starting to figure it out, making reads and stuff, anticipating. Because it was on 30 frames, man. It was pretty raw back then. I'll never forget it. I think I was fighting an Orochi, I think. And he did a heavy feint into guard break, and that, blew my mind. I was like, holy shit. Me and my friends freaked out. I was like, dude, he just heavy feinted and guard broke me. What the fuck? The majority of everybody said good fight. There was hardly any toxicity, if I'm to be completely honest. Everybody was cool, everybody was chill. Everybody was just loving the game, freaking out. It was a special time.
Ubisoft introduced the 12 heroes that came with the game, 4 for each faction. Every faction had a vanguard, basically a jack of all trades, a heavy, a slow but hard-hitting tank, an assassin, a small and fast harasser, and a hybrid, who's a mix of 2 of the previous hero types.
Though the factions had warred for 1,000 years, they had not evolved in the same way. Their methods of war, ideologies, outlooks, and goals were all vastly different, and this was reflected in their warriors that they deployed into battle. The Vikings built their way of war around passionate bloodlust and a determination to fight, die, and kill in glory and honor. To them, the cataclysm was a Ragnarok, the judgment of the gods, and they had been found wanting. Why had they been declined? Why were they left by the wayside? They did not know, but they were determined now more than ever to prove their strength of heart and passionate tenacity. The raiders, their vanguards, wielding the Dane axe with ferocity, forego the use of armor as a testament to their bravery, proving they do not fear death or injury. And their bravery is so infectious, it draws others into battle behind them. The Berserkers, matted and ferocious warriors wielding twin axes, believe true defense is an unstoppable offense. They battle with a fury so incredible they appear more like savage beasts than men. And to protect their people, to preserve the ways of the defense, the warlords, armed with sword and shield, are their bulwark against the foes of Valkenheim, unwavering and immovable as the stones on which their homes are constructed. However, there are those who cannot fight and earn glory for themselves. What of them? Speaketh the Valkyrie, women who wield the spear and shield, fighting and killing to earn glory and honor for those who are incapable of doing so. And thus, in this way, all of Valkenheim might be blessed through their work. The Vikings do not fight for land or even their own survival, but because they seek the acknowledgement of the gods, so that when Ragnarok comes again, they will not be left behind. The Knight's way of war is one of preservation and perseverance, the betterment of order and justice. The cataclysm stripped them of more than their homes, but also their hope. Families ripped apart, laws torn asunder. Infighting was all the Knights knew. But from the ashes of calamity would rise new orders, orders bent on bringing about discipline and the defense of the weak. The Wardens, masters of the longsword, were an order forged in the fires of devastation, sworn to defend the weak and the needy, giving their very lives for any soul who cries out for help. Though a broken order now, their oaths are not easily tarnished. And even conscripted criminals were given a chance at redemption. Known as conquerors, given shield and flail, they are the battering ram of the Knights, plunging into combat in an attempt to right the wrongs of their past and to bring justice where once they brought sin. But to preserve order means that peace must be maintained. The Peacekeepers, hidden female assassins, stalk the streets of Ashfeld and the battlefield. Armed with short sword and dagger, they bleed the wicked, the heretic, and the sinner. In times of war, they will never rest. And in times of peace, they are the silent watchers who judge from the shadows. But of course, no order can be built without a solid and firm foundation of law, and the lawbringers are the sentinels of justice, armed with the poleaxe and the most powerful armor available. Where they go, they bring with them the highest level of judgment and destruction. If they arrive on the field of battle, then pray you are without sin. For the Knights, they have tasted the results of chaos and anarchy. They know the pain of a world without hope, and they will never fall to this fate again. Meanwhile, the samurai do not fight for justice or for glory, but rather they fight merely for their own survival. The samurai, foreigners and vagabonds in a land not their own, must make the most of what they have. Having to flee from their destroyed island nation, they have made their homes in the near inhospitable swamps of the mire. Where most would fall and flounder, the samurai have flourished, a testament to their tenacity and endurance. Few in number they may be, the samurai will fight tooth and nail to maintain their home and to survive the wrath of war and nature itself. To do this, they employ the kinseis, the sword saints, who command and lead the samurai as the forward guard. Their long nodachi swords and their mighty armor ensure not just their own safety, but the safety of their homelands. All who enter the mire uninvited suffer the blades of the saints, who will not bend to any foe, not even death. But it will take more than saints to defend their home. It will also take demons. The Shugoki, the guardian demons of the samurai. With bodies built like mountains, their kanabo break armor and bones alike. They feel no fear or pain as they batter their way through those who would defy the mire and her people. Unfortunately, though, numbers will always be against the samurai. So every warrior in the samurai must be a match for 10 enemies. Good then, that an Orochi isn't a match for 100. The Orochi are the assassins and unquestioned killers of the samurai, and be deployed to deal with the most dangerous threats. Their mastery of the katana is unparalleled, and their cunning tactics are more than enough to deal with even the most relentless of foes. But in the event these are not enough, the samurai will always fall back on the Nobushi, women warriors who are ready in an instant to fight and fend off the foes their allies could not. Armed with naginata polearms and fighting with a grace and dexterity unheard of, the Nobushi are as deadly as vipers, and even less compassionate. The samurai have suffered the loss of their homeland, and now they have found a new one. Not even hell itself will take this home from them. 3 warring factions, all different, all unique, all very ready for battle. Though all fight for different causes, they share a commonality. They all hold fast to honor. It is this honor that lets them rush into combat and die. It is this honor that keeps the machines of war moving, and it is this honor that has allowed sons and daughters to be torn from fathers and mothers. But in time, even the fires of war must dim. Even the flames of anger must sizzle to embers. And when this happened in Heathmoor, the factions began to cease their wars, their quarrels, their hostilities. Some saw this as an opportunity for peace. Others saw this as a disaster in need of correcting. So from the embers of war emerged a she-wolf, intent on reigniting the fires of war again, with a conviction to move heaven and hell. Her true name has been lost to time, but all knew her as Apollyon. The Knights of Ashfeld were divided into various legions of knights meant to defend the innocents of their lands. The most powerful of these legions was the Iron Legion. However, as time had gone on, the Iron Legion had grown lazy, complacent, and inactive. Viking raids and invasions, though not as ferocious as in the past, were able to overrun various Iron Legion holdouts and encroach further on knight lands. And the samurai, for their part, were quiet and reserved, hidden deep within the mire and content to let the Vikings take Ashfeld if they wished. During this dark time for Ashfeld, a relatively unknown legion began to grow in power. The Blackstone Legion, named for the obsidian glass table on which their legion's leaders founded this order. Led by their mysterious but powerful warlord Apollyon, the legion began pushing back against the Viking raids, amalgamating legions into their fold and growing rapidly in strength, size, and influence. One minor commander within the legion, Hervis Daubeny, began to fear the strength and power Apollyon was growing and tried to flee and form his own small band of mercenaries. However, his rebellion was thwarted by the legion's second-in-command, Holden Cross. While punishing Daubeny for his betrayal, Holden Cross would discover a nameless lone warden who proved a formidable and honorable warrior. Seeing potential in this warden, Cross recruited him to the legion, a seemingly meaningless act at the time, which would prove instrumental in the years to come. Over the course of several months, the Blackstone Legion would eclipse the Iron Legion in terms of power, forcing the Viking invaders back to Valkenheim and purging or assimilating all Iron Legion remnants into their fold. With the full might of Ashfeld behind her, Apollyon took the war into Valkenheim itself, fighting and warring her way up to Svengard, where the nameless warden would slay the famed Jarl of Svengard, Gudmundur the Great. but his conscience would be haunted by the deed. As Vingard burned before his eyes, the Warden would learn the truth of Apollyon's scheme. Conquest was not her goal, but rather famine. By destroying the grain and food storage of Vingard, Valkenheim would suffer through the winter months, and the clans would fall upon each other to fight for what little remained. Bitter and angry with Apollyon's plan, the Warden left the Blackstone Legion to pursue his own agenda. The Vikings began to war and destroy each other, leaving only a handful of powerful clans left, one of which led by Ragnar, a powerful raider who began persecuting and pillaging from weaker Viking villages and peoples. To put an end to all the fighting, a lone raider, too commanded of the Warborn clan, led the charge to kill Ragnar, redistribute the food and plunder what he'd taken, and restore Valkenheim. After killing not only Ragnar, but another powerful clan leader named Siv the Ruthless of the Bearclaw clan, the Warborn was now the undisputed and most powerful clan in Valkenheim. Their first act as the new power of Valkenheim was to retake their shipyards from the Blackstone Legion, who had remained to hold them. The Vikings began to look over the plunder and treasures left by that legion, and discovered mountains of treasures from the samurai. Realizing that the samurai had been sitting on hordes of plunder, the Vikings quickly built a fleet to raid the mire and take from the samurai while they were unprepared. The invasion was a roaring success. After breaking through Fort Kaiokabe and slaying its commander, General Fujikiyo, the Warborn tore through the mire, charting a path straight to the imperial city Koto.
I don't speak Japanese.
There they were halted briefly by the samurai at the bridge leading to Koto, and were even attacked and nearly bested by the leader of its defenders, Chozen. But after a fierce duel, Chozen was defeated by the lone raider, and the city was open to plunder, ruin, and destruction at the hands of the Warborn. All the while, Apollyon and her Blackstones watched from the shadows, waiting for their moment to move. The samurai were in disarray from the fighting. In an act of desperation, a daimyo named Ayu freed one of her trusted vassals from her prison. In Orochi, who was once hailed as the Emperor's champion, the champion was able to turn the tide and force back the Warborn. But this victory was short-lived, as the Blackstone Legion plunged upon the weakened and wounded samurai defenders. The Legion broke into the Imperial Palace, and Apollyon personally executed the samurai's emperor. With their emperor dead, Apollyon rounded up the daimyo, including Ayu herself, and put them all to the sword, asking if any would be willing to take his place. In the end, it was the defiant Seijuro who she chose, seeing in him a resilience and tenacious spirit. The rest of the daimyo she released into the swamp to fight amongst themselves. In the aftermath of the battle for the daimyo, Ayu not only emerged victorious, but also managed to rally the other clans and their remnants to her cause, forming a massive military force to rival even the Imperial army itself. Taking this force, she launched an attack on the Imperial fortress, defended by Seijuro. When Ayu's armies breached the defenses, her forces were able to make their way to the throne room itself, where Seijuro issued a challenge to the Emperor's champion, a duel of honor. And though the champion won their duel, he refused to slay Seijuro, instead asking for his help in taking the fight to Apollyon. With the mire united at last, they planned their counterattack. To best determine their attack strategy, the champion snuck through Ashfeld to find a safe path, only to discover something truly shocking. The Lone Warden, along with Holden Cross, rebuilding and recruiting for the Iron Legion, in clear violation and betrayal of the Blackstone Legion. The champion was found and caught, but rather than executed, the Warden offered them back their weapon in a show of solidarity. Unconvinced by this, the champion attacked the Warden and the two entered a vicious duel. Again, the Emperor's champion was victorious, but through their clash he'd learned the righteousness in the Warden's words and desires, and thus agreed to an alliance with him. The new Iron Legion would open a path for the samurai forces to reach Apollyon's Black Citadel. The samurai of the Dawn Empire laid siege to the fortress, eventually breaching its defenses and engaging in a furious melee with the Blackstones. The engagement was a stalemate until the Iron Legion, led by Holden Cross himself, arrived and turned the tide, forcing the Blackstones on the defensive, and Apollyon was forced to retreat to the highest tower of her very own fortress, where the Emperor's champion cornered her. After a brutal and devastating duel, Apollyon was finally bested. And yet, instead of lamenting her loss or begging for mercy, Apollyon revealed that all she'd done, all she'd gone through, had been calculated and planned. To demonstrate this, she threw her sword to the ground below to signal her defeat. At the sight of the sword, seeing their mutual enemy defeated, it appeared that the samurai and knights below would cease the hostilities and stand down. Only for the Vikings of Valkenheim and their hunger for battle and plunder, and their eagerness to take their own revenge on Apollyon, arrived. With Apollyon defeated, the three factions with no mutual reason to stand united fell upon each other in a furious bloodbath that had not been seen in generations. It was then the champion truly understood Apollyon's intentions. War for the sake of war. Every action, every move she'd made had been carefully calculated to ensure that war continued. Her assimilating the other legions into hers was to ensure the strongest knight legions remained and followed her into Valkenheim, leaving only scraps for the Viking clans to fight for during the famine guaranteed only the strongest clans would live. Leaving behind samurai treasures to tempt the Vikings, assured that they would raid and plunder the mire. Killing the Emperor and turning the daimyo against each other guaranteed that only the most ruthless and deadly clans would emerge victorious. And then she would turn all these elements, the resentful Vikings, samurai, and knights, all against her, drawing them all to her fortress where, in the end, with her death, these three factions, these wolves of war, would fall upon each other and create another beautiful, endless war. The ideology of Apollyon was simple. Peace is weakness. It is a lie. When peace is allowed to fester, it caters to the weak, the fat, and the undeserving. Complacency rules, and when disaster or difficulty emerge, mankind is unprepared for it. Only through war and conflict can the wolves flourish, can humanity endure, and can the strong be determined. So, in the end, it was her goal to save Heathbor by reigniting their bloody war and put an end to this false peace. With her declaration and intentions made clear at last, Apollyon died in victory.
When the game introduces itself to you, it sets itself apart from other games with game modes like Dominion, which is like a team-based game mode, and you really have to rely on your team in team fights. And then with game modes like Elimination, a solo type of game mode, like a lone warrior type of thing. You know, it's less about your team, it's more about you either helping your team or committing to the 1v1s.
For me, it didn't take long to realize that the only thing that was fun for me to do in this silly little game was to 1v1 other people. So duels is where I stuck to since today. I genuinely despise gangs and objectives, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. The game has definitely a split community between the dumb guys and the onesie guys. The community also split between different social medias.
When For Honor broke out, it really spread like a wildfire. There was a ton of content like posted everywhere. You had Pinterest, Tumblr, Reddit. On Reddit, you had communities like r/competitive For Honor and like the absolute geniuses at r/For Honor rants. In these communities, you had like a ton of different people who had like a ton of different like understandings and opinions of the game. For Honor just became like a really fun game to play. My friends started getting me into it. They started playing it with me. And then I started getting more serious about For Honor, and all my friends stopped playing it, and I was stuck alone.
A community that has been lurking in the shadows has slowly started emerging and began exploiting the many flaws in the game. I'm of course talking about the competitive scene.
It's difficult to talk about the meta without talking about Out of Lock Zone, the infamous, okay, attack that is not being able to be parried, okay, making Noguchi the strongest hero in competitive duels at that time. One thing you really have to understand is that For Honor was just a completely different beast back then, okay? A heavy parry would get you a guard break, okay? No one could react to anything. You could just literally just like run through people and just knock them down and just heavy. Most heroes only had like literally one good move, with the rest of their kits being pretty useless. And that is how you made the meta. That is literally how you made the meta. And on top of that, as the little cherry on top of the cake, Revenge was utterly broken. You could even get it on duels sometimes. And the damage multipliers were just absolutely bonkers, okay? Also, I'm not done yet. Throw distance gear stats were a thing, which means Warlord could essentially lead you from across the map without you being able to react in any way, shape, or form. So this, what I'm talking about, this is the meta of Season 1 that we're talking about, boys.
One thing that fascinated many people right from the get-go was the fashion. It went much deeper than any game of its kind, and the fashion has been a big part of the community since day one, and it also had its criticisms since day one.
So my main gripe with For Honor at this time was the fashion. All the Vikings looked literally the same. Raider, Berserker, Warlord. The only one that set them apart was Valkyrie. She had actually unique helmets that made her feel like different. Because like with Raider, Berserker, just the way they felt, it felt like you were playing the same character over and over again. And then with characters like Shigoki, he's just like, he looks like a meme character. He hugs you and he's got like that iconic headpiece. He was genuinely such like a threat on the field just because of his looks.
The hero with the most popular fashion was Lawbringer, who was also the third most popular hero in the entire game. And who better to talk about Lawbringer from the old days than Spliced.
Back in Season 1, when Lawbringer was the staple of the game, in my opinion, I attached myself to the class because not only did I find its attack style very appealing, but also aesthetically was probably the most beautiful class. It was listed as a hybrid, giving it mobility and damage resistance, but in my opinion, I thought the class was the best tank in the game. I quickly learned the gear required in order to make Lawbringer as strong as possible when using the Revenge stat, which back in Season 1 was one of the most strongest stats in the game. When no one knew how to play the game, when there were no guides, I put every single hour into this class. During this time where everyone was trying to learn how to master classes and figure out the game, I quickly learned that Lawbringer was not only one of the best tankiest classes, but also one of the best 1vx classes in the game, where basically 2 or more players try to kill you at the same time, and you can come out on top. I think it was something like 14 days into the launch of the game, I think I figured out the class enough to make a guide on how to play the Lawbringer in every way, shape, or form. After I uploaded this guide just to help some people, before long, it seemed like people thought that I knew what I was talking about, and a lot of people decided to learn more about what I had to offer for this game.
The game was filled with bugs and problems from the start. For example, servers were peer-to-peer, which led to widespread connection issues. Even Quotecat made a video addressing these problems, garnering over 1 million views. You would get disconnected every 4th game, and sometimes it made the game outright unplayable. Combined with a very non-conservative way this fighting game worked, and a general lack of interest from the mainstream for such games, led to For Honor crashing hard after just a few weeks from release, losing around 90% of the player base, with the future of the game being uncertain. However, Ubisoft decided to stick to the game despite the crash and build a cult following that plays the game to this day. If you're watching this video, it's more likely you have been playing for 8 years than someone who only just started. For Honor may not have the largest fan base, but definitely one of the most loyal ones. There simply is no alternative to this game, besides Season 2.
Apollyon was dead. The war had resumed in full, and the knights were painfully aware that they were unprepared. Ashfeld was still reeling from the reality that their legions had all been assimilated into the Blackstone Legion, and though the Iron Legion had been reformed and reforged, it was a shadow of its former size and influence. As a result, the Ashfeldians knew that they needed to rebuild, restructure, and prepare. The old forges were rekindled and ignited to begin building armor, weapons, and machines of war. But armies, no matter how well armed, are nothing without structure and discipline, and thus the knights were blessed with an unlikely ally. Echoes from a past they'd long thought lost, the Centurions arrived in Ashfeld. Armed with a gladius and their raw physical might, the Centurions are effective fighters in their own right, but are even more efficient military commanders, leaders, tacticians, and trainers. With their assistance and direction, the Centurions, like the forges themselves, were molding the weakened and green Ashfeld Knight legions into fighting forces to be reckoned with once again. Meanwhile, the samurai were also woefully underprepared for the war they were about to wage. Years of isolation within their mire had made them somewhat ignorant to the strength, reach, and capabilities of their enemies. With no emperor and their information network in pieces, they needed information, they needed spies, they needed the shadows. And from those very shadows emerged the shinobi, the ancient and elite clans of warriors and spies who specialize in obtaining intel, sabotaging enemy supplies and forces, and causing general chaos and pandemonium for their enemies. The samurai, of course, had whispered of their existence, but only now had they seen any evidence of them. The shinobi offered more than their battle skill to the samurai, but necessary spy and subterfuge assets, which would undoubtedly give the samurai their needed edge in the war effort. Truly, this was a season that would see the clashing of shadows and might.
Shinobi is, even for today's standards, a very weird and unique hero. A ninja straight out of an anime. He is the only hero who had ranged attacks and teleportation, making him by far the longest range hero in the game.
He was just a character that nobody liked to play against. He was seen as the cheat character, basically. In casual Dominion, he was untouchable. He had so much versatility in terms of his range. He has his range guard break, which at that time almost no one knew how to counter. And at first there's still a lot of excitement, like, oh wow, new hero was teased, I can't wait for him to drop, he can do so many insane things. But quickly the community splits in half on those who hated Shinobi for being annoying and those who didn't care and just wanted to cheese.
But we don't really talk about that much because people were much more focused on the Roman soldier. Yes, the vision, the mirage, okay, that everybody had in their minds. I want to be this Roman soldier. I don't need a shield. I can just defend with my armor. The unexpected newcomer for the knights with a short sword and a metal fist. Scent was just released in the most nerfed but also broken way possible, okay? People were not being able to look at anything else except to the fact that if you got a wall splat, you can just do a cutscene on him infinitely. It could lock you on a wall and insta-kill you. It was just like a punch, and you got pinned first, and then you got a punch, and then you're on the ground, and then Centurion did his little cutscene, was looking at you, trying to taunt you and shit. It was wild for the community. By the way, optimal strategies like unlock tech, unlock zone, from the Nobu specifically, or zone flickers are still in the game, okay? And they're gonna be for quite a few more seasons to come. So, goddamn strap on, boys.
But here's the true reason why Garcen brought me here, actually blackmailed me here to talk to you guys. The reason is top tier lists, yes, because they are very objective and everybody agrees with them in the comment section, and everybody always agrees about whatever take you have about the hero you hate the most. No, but it is something that we gotta do, and I'm the perfect person to do that. For each season, we're gonna do a gold placement, we're gonna do a silver placement, and we're gonna do a bronze placement.
The leaderboards will be split into a Dominion leaderboard and a Duels leaderboard, okay? The reason for that is how massively different the two metas are, okay? As Dominion is mostly about ganks, is mostly about rotations, so several people fighting several people, while Duels is isolated. The art of battle works slightly different on both, although it's an extension of the exact same game. 2v2s, 4v4s is just an evolution from 1v1s. We're starting on bronze, because of course we are, okay? Warlord, very simple, very direct. Unlock Crashing Charge.
The character was very strong defensively because back in those days, his full block actually was not guard break vulnerable. Even if you guard broke a Warlord whilst he was sat in the full block, he could just counter guard break.
The silver medal goes to Conk, unreadable animation bash. While the bash was 500, they would have a pretty much unreadable animation, okay? And the gold medal goes to Nobushi, okay? Just because of unlock tech being a thing, it was just uncounterable, which also makes her gold in Dominion too. Silver goes to Shigoki as well. Oni charge was broken, uninterruptible hyper armor every 15 somewhat seconds. Not much else to say there. I will, however, give a spotlight to Kensei as well, due to his crazy hitboxes. In particular, his zone, he was just basically untouchable on team fights, and his deflects were also very much used by top level people in like Season 1 Kensei. But you know what? Season 1, Season 2, nobody remembers that. Let's move on.
Season 2 also brought with it 2 new maps. Forge is a dark, ugly and linear shithole that no one likes, but Temple Garden ended up being the most iconic and beloved map for the entire community. While the competitive side of the game hasn't really been fleshed out yet, there were people who already wanted to improve and become more competitive. Not just for the upcoming tournaments that Ubisoft promised, but also just for their inner ego. The most infamous was Play Fiends, the #1 warden back then, whose early montages struck a nerve with the community. However, the training mode only consisted of a few videos that didn't really teach anyone how to play the game. So most people learned by watching guides on the internet or watching gameplay of high-level fights of their desired hero. Most popular YouTube channels for that were Schmolty, Spliced, Kenzo, from whom I got into Warlord by the way, or the #1 series by King Angelus.
Yo, what's up everybody? Angelus here and welcome back to yet another For Honor #1 ranked series video. In today's video we have the #1 ranked Shinobi.
Legal Bomb versus the former #1 Hitakiri, Eliblaster. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I am New Angelus, replacing King Angelus, and you gotta smash that subscribe button, hit the notification.
From the beginning, when I first started this game on YouTube, I was going from game to game. I really didn't have a specific game I wanted to play. So I was just playing every game that came out. I would go to GameStop and whatever was released, I'd get. So For Honor came out and I played the campaign, and for the first time in like years, I was like, dang, an actual game that came out that I really enjoy playing. It was very unique. There was nothing else like it. And just the basis of, you know, samurai, knights, and Vikings was just very cool. I was a samurai main when the game first came out, but I just started making just random clips on the game, and eventually it got to this point where I posted me facing off against this #1 rank guy, and from then on, my YouTube channel's been kind of based on that. So over the years, I've just gone from like the #1 rank players to me making just any kind of unique content I can on this game, because I feel like every other For Honor YouTuber since the beginning has posted the exact same thing, and all the channels are very similar. It's them facing random people in duels, or them facing random people in 4s, and I've always felt like there's just nothing unique about the For Honor YouTuber community when it comes to that sense. So I've wanted always to be that one YouTuber that is just different, that just posts unique stuff constantly, where if you come to my channel, it's just something different. But when it comes to this game specifically, and being a content creator for this game, it's not that hard to come up with unique topics, because there's so much in this game. There's so many characters, there's so many players, and there's so many players from different countries too. Like in the #1 series, like Garrison, for example, you have, you know, Germany, you have Kelowe from the United Kingdom. I mean, people from all over the place that are playing this game. And there's a good side to this community, but this is also one of the most toxic communities I've ever seen. And I play Call of Duty my whole life, but when it comes to like me growing in the journey throughout this, I just kept grinding, stayed passionate in it, and we eventually got to where we are today.
The ferocity of the Vikings was impressive, but even they could not contend fully with the new adversaries they faced. So, in an act of desperation, the Vikings fell back on an old alliance. From a northern isle lives a hardy and mighty people known simply as the Highlanders. Large, powerful, and forged into mighty warriors thanks to the harsh conditions of their homeland. Generations past, they were foes of the Vikings, but in the end settled for an alliance with them. In exchange for keeping their homeland safe from the samurai and knights, the Highlanders must answer the call to war should the Vikings be in need. Now was the time, and the Vikings reached out to their once enemies for their salvation. Begrudgingly, the Highlanders answered the summons and entered the war. Wielding enormous claymore swords, the Highlanders brought with them a near unmatched brutality and strength that left the other factions staggering. For some, this would have been cause for concern, alarm even. But within the empire from which the Centurions hailed, A new breed of warrior found the prospect enticing. Once mere prize fighters who lived for the glory of roaring crowds, now the gladiators have entered the battlefield. With trident and buckler shield, these warriors forego heavy and protective armor, challenging their foes to try and take their lives. The audacity of the gladiators has piqued both the rage and the fear in the Vikings and samurai. And as these two unstoppable forces seek to collide in bloody combat, it will become a true test between the grudges of the Highlander and the glory the gladiators seek.
The thing that I really liked about Kelowe, since I've always been a very low reaction player, and Gladiator is a character who has a tool for damn near everything, except for getting your shit reacted to on Flash. Okay, so he had increased stamina, which was his main thing. Allowed him to do more mix-ups than more characters, which is probably why I gravitated towards him. It allows you to keep the pressure up. But since the character isn't relatively that fast to begin with, you're not going to be like Orochi or Peacekeeper where you're constantly trying to manipulate the flow of the battle. It's more of like an aggressive pressure, because once you get in your chain, that's when Gladiator really shines. But you can't get into your chain that well unless you make a proper read. So it's like a good balance with the character that I've always had to experience. His quad light, his toe stab chain, and then his deflect was another immaculate tool. That thing is broken, 30 damage bleed. Oh my god. And don't get me started on when they had the stand changes and you could just toe stab spam. He is literally the funnest character in the entire game, not to mention the amount of text that he had that people didn't know about. For the longest time, one of my favorite things to do is if you ever got a deflect and you held the skewer, you could do a guard break right afterward. They couldn't light you. If they light you, it's a guaranteed guard break. And sniping, snipe tech was beautiful. I don't care what anyone says, I'm the person who came up with that shit. The backstep light tech, I know you hate me bringing up backstep lights. But that's always been my favorite playstyle. If you do the bottom left side, he gets the most backstep distance. He has so many things he can do from it. He can chain for a neutral heavy. So it was always like a game of backstep light, heavy feint, backstep light, and you just cue the heavy to try and catch them whenever they start. It was always beautiful. And then don't get me started on his out of stand techs. They were all beautiful. Toe stab, back side step light, delayed skewer, throw people on the ground, get double heavies. That was always beautiful. His zone obviously was one of his best moves. It was still, people couldn't get it because it has no tracking, so you have to know how to use it. Definitely a character you have to understand. You have to, know how to use. Beautiful days.
This season added another 2 heroes, 2 new maps, and a ranked mode beta that to this day is still in its beta. The first new hero we got is Highlander, a Scottish man with a huge sword joining the Vikings. To this day, the most complex and hardest to play hero in the game, with his 2 modes of fighting. Since release, he has always been considered a weak hero and in the lower half of the tier list.
So Highlanders had to be super defensive back then and try and just bait your opponent to throw something so you could enter and CC it and be in your offense. But even then you stood the risk of getting light parried yourself. A lot of people had mixed reviews of him because he was super complicated. He was the only one who takes skill. But back then he was just pretty bad, and you could just sit on Lawbringer, turtle the entire time, fight Highlander, and there wasn't really much you could do as the Highlander.
While the character isn't very popular, he has grown a niche cult following of max reputation Highlander mains, some of whom even being the best duelists in the game. The second new hero is Gladiator. One thing to know that I haven't brought up yet is how stamina worked back then. When you were out of stamina, the enemy could still drain your stamina by bashing or throwing you, and you wouldn't regenerate your stamina by falling down. This meant that going out of stamina was extremely dangerous, and you usually wouldn't have the time to get your stamina back. Some characters had moves that would quickly drain the entire stamina of the opponent. For example, Centurion, giving them the title of stamina bullies. Gladiator was another one of these stamina bullies. When an enemy was out of stamina, Gladiator's toe stab would guarantee a heavy. He could repeat this many times if they get out of stamina just once. This is an issue that would stay in For Honor for many years. Entire playstyles were built around this. They finally got rid of Nobushi's out of lock tech, but the damage it did to For Honor's reputation cannot be undone. They also increased the max reputation rate from 30 to 40. At the same time, people discovered just how strong Warden's bash in duels was, replacing Nobushi as the new gold rank in duels.
Alright guys, this is the time where I inject some heroin into this shit, okay? F***ing Warden. Unreactable bash mix-up mixed with clunkiest bash animations, okay? There was no animation on Warden, bro. You look at old footage, Warden's just flying towards you, okay? He's just a flying torpedo, slowly getting closer to you with his shoulder, okay? It's actually crazy how Warden's animations has changed over time.
It's interesting, like months went by and people were starting to wonder what kind of content this game was going to push out, you know? The first event was Halloween event on For Honor. The minions were cool. Like, the minions were skeletons, and the Halloween theme and the map was awesome. Like, people were definitely freaking out. The event itself, like the event game mode, it was okay. Basically, like, minions give you a certain kind of weird boost. It was kind of strange, hard to explain. I remember me and my friends wanting, like, you know, different content out of it. Not complaining too much, but noticing Ubisoft taking the weird path of, like, you know, masks and stuff was different, because we were expecting, like, hard-ass cosmetics. But, yeah, the game mode, it was alright, you know? It wasn't anything too crazy. The masks and stuff, like, when they showed up during an execution, that was pretty cool. But, it was still, like, you know, we wanted a lot more out of it, being the first event, especially since it was Halloween. There's, not too much more to add to that, first event, because that first event was small.
Many players would grow tired of the game, delete it, only to reinstall it the next week, once they realized there is no game just like For Honor. The community grew hateful towards the game, but had nowhere else to go, making the game a toxic environment full of salt and beef within the community. It was hard going a day in the game without someone spamming thanks, thanks, thanks. If you're on Xbox, sorry, sorry, sorry. If you're on PlayStation, or some real insults in the chat if you were on PC.
The samurai and the Vikings were both putting up valiant struggles against the knights, but the raw military strength the knights were able to field was still overwhelming. So the two factions decided to turn to their more desperate allies, if such a term can even apply to them. The samurai looked to the Aramusha, masterless samurai who've been released from their servitude to their masters. Wielding twin katana, the Aramusha swear no loyalty to anyone but themselves and their own destinies. But now that the Myers' need is greatest, they might now turn their blades on the foes of the samurai rather than the masters who once scorned them. Meanwhile, the Vikings turned to the shamans, wild, feral, and savage women of the land who commune with the spirits of nature, with the gods, and with the dead. As ready to lash out savagely upon her own allies as her enemies, the shamans fight with dagger and hatchet, and even their own teeth, proving to be unpredictable and ferocious adversaries. These wild cards were the key to tipping the balance, and, at long last, the knights were unable to fully break the samurai and Vikings, leading to something of a stalemate. As they learned that loyalty was a fickle matter and that you had to widen your trust to win this war, now the knights had no choice but to face those fiery and rebellious newcomers that were walking a fine line between order and havoc.
Shaman was easily one of the most hated characters on launch. When I got my hands on this class, I was given early access to test it out a couple weeks early. I was testing it against other creators, and we all simultaneously agreed that this class was going to be a huge problem on release. The reason why this class was so disliked is very specifically the overpowering damage that you can deal in such a short amount of time. The class had an insanely strong, long-ranged auto attack that you could not avoid. Its bleeds were devastating. It had a bleed follow-up where you could jump and bite the class, giving you full stamina back, damaging half the HP bar of the enemy. You could do a one-shot combo within 2 seconds, and most of the time people did not know how to react because it had an unblockable, it had a dodge attack, it had a deflect into bleed. There was anything you could think of, this class had it. It was proven evidently so when I started uploading videos, showcasing it, and getting tons and tons of dislikes and hateful comments. The class had counters though, despite how strong it was, and slowly over time people started to realize, yes, this is a higher tier class, but it's definitely not unstoppable. And when I came back, people started slowly accepting that this class was not leaving anytime soon, and definitely not getting a nerf.
Aight. Order and Havoc. My reading, Havoc is Shaman, Order is the Aramusha, okay? Even though Aramusha literally is using tattoos. I don't know. I didn't create this shit. And Aramusha underperformed at the eyes of the public and in the eyes of the competitive scene.
The issue with Aramusha was just, he didn't really have an opener, you know? I mean, he had his, like, deadly feints, where, but, like, to get into them, he would have to throw a heavy first and then do these things, which were, by the way, 500 milliseconds, so they were completely reactable to a lot of PC players anyways at that point. The best thing he really had was his zone, which was unblockable, but, like, to get into his zone again, he had to throw a 500 millisecond attack, which they could just parry. For PC players, he was very easy to beat. Although on console, I would have to say, he was pretty solid, I will give him that. Besides the 2 new heroes, we also got 2 new maps and a new game mode. Tribute. Tribute was basically capture the flag, but with 3 solid flags that gave your team certain boosts. A round on this game mode could last for half an hour, and the general consensus was that it was boring and not worth the effort. Therefore it got dumped by the community and died only a few months later. It's by far the least played game mode to this day of any game mode in any game ever made. Tribute. The 2 new added maps were Market Town and Gauntlet. However, Market Town is again not available in Dominion.
I remember my first time playing Gauntlet. It is currently still my favorite map. Gauntlet is just fun as shit. I love pulling the bridges. Adds a little bit of, a timing strategy to capturing the points. It was fun. There was no other map like it. Being able to, kill with the environment so easily. Seacoin had I think it was a campfire, dead ass in the center of that whole zone. And it was just a death pit. People tried to throw you in that campfire constantly. It was brutal, so hard to survive. And both bridges, I believe both of them led to a falling death. It was fun as shit.
During this time, Centurion finally received his first nerf, turning him from an utterly broken hero to a respected high tier pick, as he could no longer lock enemies on a wall. Warlord got nerfed as well, not being able to just sit on his full lock anymore all game long. And then on Christmas, we received our very first Christmas event.
When Ice Brawls came out, everybody freaked out. The breaking ice did throw off some people because positioning was something that everybody was still getting used to. Warlord was a character that was feared on Ice Brawls immediately, because back then during this time frame, Warlord could just take you from point A to point C in one push, and it was so bad. It was like Raider, but Warlords just, oh my god, they just trucked that whole event. There was a few times where I saw a Warlord and a Raider. One would try and hold in pin while the other would just, sprint you off the side. I encountered a lot of those during the Ice Brawl. It was fun though. Obviously a lot of people got pissed at it at times, people being toxic. It was starting to come to light what kind of players were playing to, get better, and the ones that just wanted to piss people off. It was really starting to show. But Ice Brawls was fun. Everybody loved it. Became a staple event very obviously.
I am playing For Honor since the open beta. I was asked by my friend Garrison because I'm a Peacekeeper main over 9 years. When For Honor was released, Peacekeeper kit was light, heavies, zone attack, dodge attack, and deflex. But what made her unique was her gunbreak punish and her bleed damage. Peacekeeper could just light spam everybody and win. Zone attack was also super fast and pretty much unreactable for most people. Problem with her zone though, you could just use it 2 times before you were out of stamina. Her damage was really good as well. I remember that a triple step guard-break finish take almost half your opponent's health. At that time, getting the third stab from a guard break was actually pretty difficult because the timing on stab was really strict and you actually needed to practice to be able to get all 3 stabs. Other part of her kit was her dagger cancels, which at the time were pretty useless. Her dagger cancels were coming from the same side as the opener heavy, they could easily block it. And if they decided to parry, they could parry both heavy and dagger cancel on the same time. Despite this, she was, at least in my opinion, one of the strongest heroes in the game. But as the time went by, people learned how to parry and how to react better to her lights. Pretty soon they were able to block or parry her lights pretty consistently. Luckily for Peacekeeper, people still didn't know how to differentiate the light and heavies, so they were basically parrying red, so you could catch them with heavies. I still remember this one match when I was only throwing heavies and my opponent was trying to light parry and the heavy always landed, and I managed to defeat him by just using heavies. The funny thing was that he actually called me a heavy spam. I think that is about everything I could say about Peacekeeper after 9 years. She is still my favorite hero. I still have a lot of fun playing her, even though I play other heroes, but always consider her my mate. And finally, I would like to thank Garrison for inviting me to be part of this ambitious project. So farewell, and see you on the battlefield.
Though Apollyon was now long dead, her legacy was cemented and her will made manifest. The factions were now embroiled in an intense and deadlocked struggle for power and dominance. The strong rose up and the weak were left by the wayside. All had occurred just as Apollyon had desired. She had truly ushered in an age of wolves.
Season 5, Age of Wolves, released on February 15th, 2018, and surprised everyone by not adding any new heroes, but instead reworking old heroes and improving the quality of life for the game.
I remember, I was such a kid, like I was on the Toys R Us. We had 3 different reworks. We had balancing patches for almost all heroes. We had Art of War mechanic changes. It was like kids on a candy store. Okay?
It was such a massive update that patch notes would take 50 minutes to read, and included 3 full-on reworks for Kensei, Berserker, and one more that we'll get on in a bit. Berserker's changes were mostly in his properties. He had no constant hyper armor during his infinite chain, and his light attacks were one of the first to be turned to 400 milliseconds. Furthermore, his chain top heavy is now unblockable, and he received some more minor tweaks here and there. Kensei's rework in Season 5 is to this day regarded as the best rework in For Honor history. His top heavies went from being super fast to super slow, but with a huge amount of options to go by. To go with this, his unblockables faint much later now, making it unreactable. His third side heavies and knights have instant hyper armor, Kensei got a forward sleep attack, his zone was replaced by a super fast one, and he even received a small bash from his top heavy. His animations also became much smoother in the meantime. Overall, the new Kensei manages to stay true to the character while also improving everything towards the Kensei playstyle. But this sadly didn't stop many Kensei players to just spam dodge attack and zone with him. Kensei mains really are either the most skillful players you will ever meet, or the stupidest. No in between.
It was the same mechanic with like Highlander and Shaman with Kensei soft feints, where you couldn't really do much against him. In his 4th feat, he's like practically unparryable, and the only way to like really get around him was wait for him to make a mistake that you could get around and just counter him.
We saw Apollyon on the trailer and we didn't really know what it was at the time. When the event dropped and we saw that event game mode, we were like, huh, what's that? Let's check that out. Did not realize we were going to be squaring up against 4 really stacked bosses from the campaign. Like, it was pretty badass. And the rewards for the event were pretty cool too. That dark one came out for this event, which was freaking sweet. The Apollyon moveset was just so wild at some points, and then just getting railed by, you know, the Warlord or the PK, like, oh my god, it was so difficult sometimes. It was never, you know, a guaranteed win every time. We definitely lost quite a bit. What was that other... That's right, yeah, there was a Orochi boss in that event, and he definitely beat my ass. It was so annoying.
Dedicated servers are something every game needs to strive for, because peer-to-peer is something we've left in the past. Basically, when we had Call of Duty and peer-to-peer existed, we had things like host advantage, which could really make games unbalanced towards anyone that wasn't host. For Honor launched with peer-to-peer, and that already saw negative effects basically immediately. Now, where the negative effects came from the host migrations all the time, the pauses in stats, and just overall bad latency between everyone except the host. Now, finally, after an entire year went by, they finally made the switch to dedicated servers. Now, if I remember correctly, it wasn't a very smooth switch. It took its time to be fleshed out and done properly, but it's still good. Switching to dedicated servers is always something games need to go for, because even in games now, when they have dedicated servers that are poor, it can impact games horribly. For Honor's servers at the moment, I think, are in the best state it can be. There's a lot of people that are going to complain that, oh, I get disconnected from my matches very often, I get disconnected this, I get disconnected that. It's really not the server's issue, more or less your own issue. Every time I've been disconnected, it has been due to my own latency. Now, do I get disconnected? Yes, I do in a handful of times, but it's because of something outside of my control, like just leaving the game because they don't want to play it or people joining. So sometimes the servers get overbarred and then the entire server crashes. That happens in every game, so giving it to For Honor is just not good.
Highlander took an immense amount of skill. I feel like he just doesn't belong in the game because of how unique the hero is. You know, you have a hero that's able to dodge in a stance, you know, with very low recoveries, and it's just crazy. It made me want to pick up the character even more because of how much of a high skill ceiling he has, and not to mention the identity behind him. Before, Highlander wasn't able to kick the grab, right? His kick the grab would just not track at all. So when he got his new buff, it made a humongous difference. The whole entire matchups that he had that were horrendous actually were really good now. And not to mention, with that change, he ended up getting his damage buffed as well. They brought it all the way up to 40. You can get pretty much 3-shot, 4-shot by Highlander back in the day. I think his offensive lights were another important thing within matchups. His crushing counters and back light tech are key. Like, they're honestly key to his defense, because it was a way to get into your offensive stance, and it was a way to option select a lot of the people that would try to like let go of their heavies or even just light attacks. Also, his stam got better with the buff that he received during that season. Wave dash is another one that's extremely important. Being able to just dodge around your opponent's moveset was key. It was key because a lot of people didn't have undodgeable attacks. That is what makes Highlander Highlander, in my opinion. Being able to just wave dash around. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up his kit.
Before we move on to Season 6, lastly, I want to mention the most important update for the season, that being Conqueror. His frame data was completely reworked, and I will now calmly explain in micro detail why.
I am the Dark Lord, King ERATROS, the most dangerous man in For Honor history. I'm going to script and lag switch with my Aramush and kill everyone in Dominion and make fun to this community because they don't deserve a player like me. If you are going to become my friend, you are not going to find a friend, you are going to find an enemy. I have a very toxic, long story on this game. I was the only single man that fight the army of this game alone. The big part of the community hate me, start from community Italian, Europe, America, and it was hard because I think they never understand the point of my idea. I don't give a shit. I can make you million of examples, like I definitely beat everyone in this community. What is the point? I was one of the best players and people know this, but they contribute to transform me in the animal that I am right now because they too much talk shit and I was too much stressed and stress every day. I become like this and I don't care anymore. I definitely lost all my sentiment because when I was a good guy, you guys are profitation of this. You guys think I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. I don't want to be gentler with anyone, only with my close friend. The rest of the community for me can die under the train because I don't give a shit about them, seriously. I accepted to join this call, this interview, because I think you are a good guy. And I want to tell you something. I have a little envy to you. When I see you play against someone and you lost or you win and you give good fight, you always respect everyone. I want to be like you. I want to be like you, to respect everyone and be friendly to everyone, but my character can't do this. I want to be gentle with people, but that's impossible situation to me. You can't. What you do? Go in the middle. They teabag you and they spam you sorry and thanks and you say good fight. I never be like this. Maybe it's very long intro to me, but I want the For Honor community to know about this. Conquerors was one of the best characters for a lot of years. The #1 title to the best hero for a 1v1 fight. The zone is one of the best zone in the game, for my opinion. I usually use this type of zone to stop a light attack or a heavy attack because it's like a full block. He can cover you to every single attack and guard break, just wait your enemy to take some stamina. Maybe they give you a heavy attack and you block and you don't answer with a light or with a zone. When they pair you a heavy, they just going to bash you because it takes a lot of stamina. And they bash you frontal and don't attack, like no light, just bash. And the enemy see you are not going to light and he dodge again because this is instinct. And you can go another bash and you make him auto stamina, and after you bully him with bash, feint, you dodge, feint, frontal, and maybe he dodge, you can guard break and put on the floor and max punish. I understand. That's a magic trick. I like to call like this magic trick of Conqueror. I think I have explained everything possible to this game, even to my story in this game, even about the gameplay. In the end of the story, my interview is end. There is no other guy that can do what I do right now against everyone. If you come in the community and you take a random guy and take him and beat ERATROS for 10 hours, he's not going to survive because no one can support the stress and the problems that I have to face every single day. But I like to fight like this because it makes me alive. You guys talk about me every single day. This make my heart alive, even if I'm not present, like a ghost. Remember, when you talk about ERATROS, ERATROS is with you. Stay dark.
Now every culture and every society has its heroes and legends. As the wars in Heathmoor grew ever more tumultuous, the factions began seeking inspiration and courage in the legends and stories of their greatest heroes, both ancient and recent. Valiant knights, fearless Vikings, faithful samurai, all who made themselves known as to live on in the consciousness of their factions and their enemies for all time. The factions recollected and shared these legends that define their past and will live on in their future as they perform a hero's march.
Season 6 brought with the 2 reworks, Orochi and Peacekeeper. Tests of Metal also came back from last season with new enemies, as well as a new map, Beachhead. PK can now feign her side heavies to her top light, same for the second hit of her zone. Furthermore, she can soft feign out of a heavy to a dodge attack and get a heavy from a guard break. Those changes weren't much, but they kept her afloat to not become entirely irrelevant in the meta. Orochi 2 received only minor upgrades, like faster counterattacks and a storm rush from all sides. And it's best if those Orochi changes were explained by my good friend, Chozen.
Hello, name's Chozen. I've started playing For Honor since the alpha and beta, and I played during the free play days. I got into Orochi from honestly watching a couple Nova King videos. I would set aside time just in the practice range, just practicing deflex, practicing defensive mechanics for like hours at a time. It got to a point where I would only play that character for at least 3 to 4 years straight because I just refused playing the character. In duels, he had a couple of things that made him unique. For example, the fact that double top light was still his own thing. He had deflex, the heavy deflect, light deflect, the fact that you can mix between the two to kind of create your own situation. It was kind of cool. And then just throughout time, as people started playing it more, there's been a couple specialists. Like for example, Nova King, there was someone called Tessar, There's a couple other ones that I can't really remember off the top of my head, but they kind of set the example for how Orochi could be played into duels. And taking that into accountability, you'd see a bit more Orochi specialists start to pop up. Like, for example, Oni Orochi, he came along the scene as well. But we didn't really saw any Orochis like at the higher levels, especially when it came to scrims, dom, comes to duels, comes to brawls. He just wasn't really useful. Probably a C to B tier duelist if you knew what you were doing. There used to be a thing with Orochi where you could throw a top, just a singular top light, and then in the very next second throw a zone. It's kind of an interesting mix. Of course, there was also flicker tech with Orochi where he would throw a top light, but it'd flicker to a zone. That's pretty iconic. There used to be a tech with Orochi where you can do a 180 to 360 dodge light, but that's not in the game anymore, unfortunately. There's another thing I call Sephiroth tech where you can hit someone and they're not even near you with the top heavy. There's a couple things I figured out with Orochi.
So there are 3 factions, Knights, Vikings, and a Samurai. Part most people thought that the factions would work that way, where if you were to pick one specific type of faction, you were only able to play characters from that said faction. How they ended up working was, didn't matter what type of faction you would pick, you were still able to play whatever characters from any faction that you would like to play. You would deploy troops on a map, and the only way to do that is by playing matches. But it came to a point where the Vikings were winning everything, and people were like, dude, I might as well just join the Vikings. It doesn't matter what faction I choose because there's no drawback, there's no punishment for changing into a new faction as well. So everyone started just going to Vikings, which is understandable. And then also the Knights were just focused on the volcanoes. It's like the volcano part of the map. For whatever reason, they called it the Volcano. It was kind of weird. The Samurai was the worst faction by far in For Honor. Everyone who was on Samurai, rest in peace, because that was the worst faction. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Perhaps war itself has an impact on the balance of nature, for without warning, the volcano Mount Ignis suddenly erupted in a catastrophic explosion of smoke, ash, and magma. Fire rained from the sky, and the sun was shrouded in a veil of smog and thick, noxious clouds. Crops withered and died, fields burned, rivers of magma cut through towns and villages, and all 3 of the factions were forced to retreat from the mountains for safety. But if the heat of the volcano was mighty, the passion of the warring groups burned hotter still. Taking heart and even encouragement from this eruption, the factions all took it as an omen of what they weren't quite sure. But what they were sure about was that they would redouble their efforts for victory. So, in the shade of fiery death, the war waged on in storms and fury.
Season 7. We are dangerously close to Season 8. You guys know what happened on Season 8, right?
Season 7, again, brought with the 2 reworks, a new map, and a new event, Raining Inferno, which was mainly a cosmetic event with the theme being fire. The first rework was Valkyrie. She received a heavy into bash soft feint that was unreactable and would open her way up for her sweep. Her lights also got faster and she became just an overall solid and fair hero. However, still no one really played her, and those that did spammed mostly lights. But it's good that the character at least isn't so weak anymore. The poster boy also has some changes. He received a 4 dodge heavy attack, an unblockable top heavy, and most importantly, his shoulder bash was buffed. If you dodge the short bash, the long bash will always hit you, unless you roll away. The Warden that we know of today is taking shape.
Silver medal on the Warden, boys. Warden gets his rework, and it actually goes slightly down because it's not as cringy of a character and as unreactable with the flying animations. Not broken as fuck.
In year 2, we saw a consistently returning game mode called Carousel of Death, which quickly became a fan favorite of event game modes.
It was the first time where we just 8 people in a arena just go ape shit at each other, you know? Team with the most standing wins, keep dying and it's longer respawns in between each death, and it was pretty fun.
Players started getting really good at the game. Lawbringer was still left in the dust for a very, very, very long time. I wanted to make Lawbringer a competitive class in ranked specifically. However, the problem was that most classes have been reworked or new classes were built in with faster attacks and new tech. The Lawbringer was left behind as a Season 1 relic, still waiting for its long overdue rework. But until then, I wanted to make it viable, so I came up with something called the Kite Strat. The Kite Strat was a way to make the class viable in Ranked. And how is that possible? The moment you're staying locked on an enemy, you can't do anything with Lawbringer against high top level players. They will react to everything the Lawbringer has to throw out at you. Because the Lawbringer was so slow, I decided to change it up. And instead of being defensive with it, I needed to be offensive. Instead of just throwing out attacks, I baited the enemy's attacks by unlocking and walking towards my screen, but moving in a way that made it look like I was trying to run away. Instead, what I was actually doing was watching their moves, making them do a very predictable running attack or jump attack. And when they do that, it's a very easy tell, as long as you're locked on, to parry it and retaliate. This tech was very stupid, and I regret ever making it. But during the time that I did come up with it, it actually worked kind of well. A lot of players became frustrated because in Ranked, the winner goes to the person with the most HP. So as long as you do the damage that needs to be done, they're on the timer to do the damage to you. TikTok to these enemy players makes them very frustrated. They will jump at you at any opportunity that they could, giving you more damage as long as you lock on time and react accordingly. You are now turning the tide of battle and making the rounds go in your favor. This was a strat that seemed like it was viable. However, at the end of the day, it was really stupid that I had to unlock in the first place to make the class work. And it was very apparent how obvious this class needed a change, and desperately.
Far to the east of Heathmoor, there once was a spectacular empire, ordained and overseen by heaven itself. When the cataclysm struck, the empire collapsed, and what followed was an endless civil war between rival warlords and governors for control of the throne. In the end, one of these warring groups decided to expand beyond the borders of their old holdings and explore the lands westward, which led them straight to the unprepared and unaware factions of Heathmoor. The knights, samurai, and Vikings were caught blindsided by the arrival of this foreign invading force known as the Wulin. Commanded by their self-proclaimed Emperor Kelowe, the Wulin seek to restore the mandate of heaven and find their place in this world, as they slaughter and cut down any who oppose their divine calling. Among their number, 4 notable warriors carved their titles and strength into the hearts of Heathmoor. The Tiandi, the vanguards of the Wulin, fighting with Dao swords and bound by oaths of unbreakable loyalty and devotion, they are the blades of the Emperor and the defenders of kings and governors. The Zhongjun, the military geniuses of the Wulin, who march into war with a Guandao glaive and with experience to demonstrate their expertise and mastery of war. They command discipline and respect from their soldiers and underlings and will settle for nothing short of victory. The Nusha, elegant dancers and performers whose grace and beauty mask a deadly precision. Assassins with dual hook swords as their instruments, the Nusha dance and weave through enemy ranks, evading attack and slipping right through enemy defenses. And the Shaolin, once monks who practiced peace and meditation to reach enlightenment, they now carry their prayers and faith into war, using their bow staves to deliver their doctrine and their piety at the end of bone-breaking fury. They have lost too much already, and they will not allow all they stand for to fade into obscurity. The Wulin have come, and despite Heathmoor's hasty attempt to stem the tide and hold back the invaders, the knights, samurai, and Vikings found themselves left on the back foot against a force they had not foreseen. The war for Heathmoor would never be the same, and it now dawned on the denizens of Heathmoor that they were not alone in this world, and their neighbors in foreign lands may be just as dangerous as the ones from China.
Marching Fire, man, what a time to be alive. 2018. For Honor was kind of at like a dry point in its life. Sure, they were still pumping out updates, but nothing was really that big. Marching Fire was a huge update. I'd still say it's For Honor's biggest update in its entire life. Basically a whole rebrand. You have an entire new faction, all 4 heroes, with all their little unique things to it. A lot of characters back then, you can kind of point and be like, oh, that's kind of the same as that, that's the same as that. Everyone in the Wu Lin brought something new to the table that was never seen before in the game, and all of them were unique in their own ways. But not only the Wu Lin were added, but so many other things, like Breach, for example. For Honor's game modes at the time were very dull and just boring, right? Things like Elimination, Skirmish, and Tribute were already dead in the water 1 year into its game's release, but Breach was this huge thing. We had this huge update, new game mode, new mechanics, and huge new maps on a new scale. I think people were really wanting some larger scale fights, and I think people were really missing that in the multiplayer segment. So Breach kind of brought that part into For Honor. Now, is Breach perfect? Not really, but no game mode is really perfect. But again, you cannot deny the overall positive aspect For Honor's Marching Fire update brought. I mean, it almost quadrupled the player base on PC alone on 1 day of it being out. Obviously, it trickled down, but that was huge, especially for PC. PC was really struggling with players. It was really hard to find a match. Sometimes you'd go 10, 15, 20 minutes, no game found whatsoever. On the days of Marching Fire, I remember queuing up for 5 seconds for Breach when it first came out, and boom, instantly, everyone PC, everyone was so happy to finally get matches as fast as possible. It was a perfect time to be playing the game after a long drought of 10, 15 minute queue times where you'd have to reset. Marching Fire is definitely the biggest step For Honor took into keeping itself alive.
Day one when he released, I gotta say this, people thought he was broken. Not only did he come with all sorts of crazy shit, I'm talking infinite combo, the triple lights, he introduced something to the game that no one else saw coming, which is the key stance tech, which is amazing. This is where you do like a light key stance into a heavy key stance, and you can still end up in key stance. He also had a Viper's Retreat. There was even a flicker tech where he was able to go into key stance twice. He'll do an unblockable heavy and land back into key stance, where you can do another unblockable heavy or kick you. You really have to have an open mind on how you wanted to pressure somebody because you didn't have openers. But Shaolin's definitely been my top tier freaking character. And I have my own Shaolin school, teaching people how to play, you know, Shaolin very patiently. This character brought in a lot of versatility and a lot of crazy stuff. The best thing I like about him is his feats. The fact that we can teleport across the map, the fact that we can blink into spawn. His key trap allows you to watch people across the map. That's fantastic. This character speaks to me because of the fact that I do this martial art in real life. And I was 5 years old, going up to 14, 15 years old, where I had to learn how to balance on the staff. People were so competitive with this character, it's funny. Have you ever realized when you fought a Shaolin, they all have the same personality with that taunting and that emote stuff? Yeah, that all came from me. I'm sorry.
Marching Fire was the biggest update in For Honor history. We got a new faction, 4 new heroes, 2 new game modes, 2 events, 3 new maps, and visual enhancements. The patch notes would take an hour to read. The update required 60 gigs of space, and the only thing left out, to the disappointment of a lot of people, was no Wulin faction to actually pick as your faction, making the whole faction war seem redundant now that you can play heroes that aren't even involved in it. Tiandi, a vanguard, was a Chinese warrior with a curved blade and ballet-like movement. He had infinite dodge heavy attacks and a quick undodgeable dodge light. He also had a neutral bash, similar to what Warlord has, but a pretty basic kit besides that. His undodgeable lights could be spammed indefinitely, making him hell to fight for the first few weeks until people learned how to actually react to that. While most casuals enjoyed him, people became quickly annoyed by the voice actress of the female version, screaming all her voice lines. As for the competitive scene, he became a staple of high-level duels and remained in the upper half of the tier lists ever since. Nuxia wasn't received anywhere near as well though. An assassin with 2 hook swords and a very basic 3-chain kit, with their main staple being her unique traps. If you try to block, parry or counter her heavies and she would feint to traps, she'd punish you. Meaning the only way to beat it was to purposefully block in another direction or interrupt her. While it's unique, people found many ways to counter it, and you'd quickly realize that she is one of the worst heroes in the game, with the only good tool she has being a fast light spam. I even made a montage showcasing all her flaws a few years back and pointing at the fact that she has been pretty much left behind in For Honor. From the weakest to the best, we had Zhang Jun, or JJ for short. A personification of the historical Chinese general Guan Yu, with his long halberd and surprisingly agile movement considering how old he is. He had a Sifu stance which would regenerate his own stamina and from which he could throw out zones. Besides that, he could also dodge attack forever, similar to Tiandi, and had just a very funny personality. I always liked JJ. He was also considered very powerful too.
His safeness punishing other heroes was extraordinary. In an era where everything was reactable, his defensive playstyle for the win, baby. 400 MS bash, paintable, and it was fundamentally unreactable. It just provided him with very strong offense. On top of that, we had 40 damage, orange UFO flying towards you at the speed of light. Sifu's own provided a consistent 18 plus damage punish against almost every correct read that he did against other heroes. And on top of that, his feats were just marvelous, right? Bonkers, boys, bonkers.
The second new game mode released was against bots only, Arcade. You would go on 4 levels, beating bots with certain attributes and sometimes even with some lore, with the increasing difficulty making it tough to beat, especially the weekly quests. On Halloween then, we got Return of the Otherworld, a throwback event of Feast of the Otherworld.
It was a buffed game mode variant than compared to the first one that released. I think there was higher minion bonuses during minion kill lane. You would just get lit up with purple fire and you just ran around just absolutely unleashing unholy damage on the whole enemy team. It was kind of wild. If you got hit once, it was like you clear minions, you go kill somebody. That's how it went. But this was a pretty fun game event. Not much more to talk about this one, because it was pretty standard, you know.
During Christmas, then we received For Honor's first ever collaboration with Assassin's Creed.
There were 2 heroes. There was the Assassin's Creed guy, and then I think one of the enemies from Assassin's Creed 3. You had to kill the enemy's boss. It was like killing the champion on a breach match. It would give the enemy an absurd amount of points, but it's not like you still have a chance if you lose your hero. You still have a chance to like kill theirs, put them into breaking as well, and help out on minion lane. But it's kind of difficult if you like go half of the game like getting those minions and then you lose your hero, because that's like all those points stacking on top of the already gained XP in the game. It was pretty nutty. Those heroes were strong. It was like fighting a weird-ass Highlander champion. And a couple of the attacks, like he did a charge attack that would just knock you on the ground, and he would sometimes do a follow-up. And if there were enemy teammates around, you would just be instantly dead. It was fun, though. The executions and cosmetics that came out for this event were pretty legit. Saw PKs everywhere just running around with that execution. But it was fun.
Season 8 went down for most as the greatest season in For Honor history. And thanks to a free week, the player base skyrocketed. They revealed that the next season will again have 4 new heroes, 1 for each faction and 1 for each season. And Ubisoft made clear that they were far from over with this silly sword game.
The gear system was a relic of For Honor's past. You had your 3 basic gears of revenge, attack, and defense. This led to a lot of different variable builds with characters. So if you wanted a very tanky warlord with things like tough as nails and just any way to make your character tanky, you would spec into the defense stat. But that would leave your attack lacking compared to other people, and obviously your revenge gain would be less. Or if you want to go the other side, you can go a damage boosting build with Berserker, Fear itself, and Fury to just basically delete people with 2 to 3 heavies. I think this was a great way to do it, but obviously the problem that came through it was the fact that the revenge build was just the go-to meta for the time, because why would you do anything else other than want more revenge? Now, moving to the perk system, I think it was kind of a necessary evil that they had to do. As much as I liked the gear system, it had to happen because there was no way to balance it without pissing somebody off. Where I had problems with the perk system is that obvious perks are better than others. You have the Vanguard tree, which is normally just okay. You have things like Endurance, which is great, Headhunter, which is fantastic, but compared all of that to the heavy perk tree, everything pales in comparison to Vengeful Barrier, Last Stand, and Bastion. These 3 perks rule the game, no diff questions asked. I think what they did wrong is that there's too many perks in the perk tree that are very useless or do the exact same thing. The support tree is my biggest gripe. You have 3 to 4 perks in the game that just increase your speed. You have Feline Agility, Supersonic, Radiant Rebound. All of these feats do the exact same thing, just in different ways, I guess. When I'm playing a heavy character, I strive to get 3 perks. When I'm playing any other class in the game, I'm fine with 2 or even 1 perk, because it really does not impact gameplay as much as it really should.
The faction war had never been as tense as it was from the Wulin's arrival to Heathmoor. Every faction now looked to each other with renewed suspicion and wariness. Was it wiser to ally with each other to expel this new threat, or would that only expose weaknesses to their longtime enemies? The answer to this question was answered abruptly and forcefully, for the world was stirring. volcanic activity, great earthquakes, and bizarre weather phenomenon were becoming more and more commonplace, and all the signs were pointing to another cataclysm just like the first. Fear set in, and the factions realized that should such a cataclysm occur, they lacked the resources to supply themselves while also waging war. It was clear what had to be done. This war must come to an end, by any means necessary. The Viking clans and the samurai decided to set aside their differences for a period and deal with their common enemy, the Knights. An invasion of Ashfeld was launched at the harbor city of Ytternavatnen. The Knights, outnumbered and overwhelmed by the sudden attack, while also plagued by a typhoon, feared the end was indeed upon them. They prayed for salvation, and salvation did come. Like a shadow spawned from the fires of war, the Black Priors appeared to counter the Vikings and samurai forces. These warriors, once pious and devout knights in service of Ashfeld, turned to Apollyon's service during her campaigns, only to vanish after her defeat. Leading scheduled lives of penance had at last stepped out of the shadows. Rather than hide into the darkness repenting, they would bring that darkness against the foes of Ashfeld, using methods and tactics horrific and more ferocious than any seen by the knights before. The Vikings and samurai were broken on the shields of the Black Priors and were forced to flee, while the knights were left to contemplate the reality that their way of war may all be altered forever, thanks to Vortiger.
Season 9 was released with excitement. This time we got one new hero, one new rework, and one new map. The new hero, an edgy knight with a sword and shield, is called Black Prior, a fan favorite to this day in all game modes.
It's the corniest character of all time, so edgy even as black in his name. His moveset was basically just a ripoff of Warlord, but with a bash undodgeable mix-up after his light. He was the first hero to ever have such a mix-up, which would come to define the game for many years to come.
Do you remember, Garriston, when BP could just bulwark a bomb?
Yup. That was Black Prior's gimmick, his bulwark stance. When he would go into his full block, he could press light attack to do his flip that could flip literally every attack in the entire game, including jumping attacks, catapults, everything, except for guard breaks.
He was basically Conquer, but with a light into bash or undodgeable mix-up. A glimpse into what For Honor will become. Because when you went out of stamina, you were practically dead. Because he got a free bash thanks to the hit stun if you blocked his light attack.
The rework of the season was Shugoki, who got his entire playstyle changed around. He no longer has instant hyper armor, and his hug would now come out as a soft feint. Now Shugokis would spam either unblockable or soft feint and unblockable into a hug, making it a 50-50. A lot of Runner players struggled a lot with the Shugoki. The heavy into hug mix-up had a success rate of 93%, making him a menace, especially in duels. Later that season, we got the opposite of edgy. On 1st April, we got the Rabbit's April Fool's event.
You know, it was really my thing. It was funny for a little bit, just the crossover and changing the minions into the rabbits.
The biggest fun YouTuber still at this time was Spliced, who made probably the most memorable YouTube For Honor video of all time in this season, the infamous Spliced diss track, and I got the honor to interview him about it. So, what was the diss track all about? Why did you make that?
It was a mix of, I wanted to try to branch out my editing style and my abilities, but it was also another thing where I wanted to see the reaction of people. I was kind of farming reactions, I'm not gonna lie. The whole idea stemmed from pure stupidity. There wasn't really a whole plan behind it.
How did you produce that?
I started off by talking to someone that was a part of the For Honor community called DefCat, who made some soundtracks, some unique original pieces, and it kind of got me thinking, what if I made a diss track and I involved some people in this video just to see what would happen. I knew though that by the time I uploaded it, it was going to be a disaster and people were going to talk about it for a while.
How did people react to that video?
People thought it was the stupidest thing on the planet. I don't know what else to say about it other than I literally just threw 4 months of my life into making something that I didn't even know how it was going to end up. And the icing on the cake is that if you look at the very end of the video, I said that it got filmed by my dad. That is true. He was holding a camera camera the entire time. The whole music video was recorded by my dad, and he didn't even know what he was recording. I was like, just stand there and record me, and I was flicking my sword around. I don't even know. It was the dumbest video I think I've ever made, but it was never made with ill intent, and I had no ill will towards anyone. The disclaimer at the very beginning is as true as possible, and that's all there is to it, man.
Do you regret making it?
I regret that people still remember it. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of wish it was like buried and gone. But I mean, a lot of people genuinely kind of like it, I think. So, you know, if it's a piece of history that deserves to be with this game, then, you know, so be it, man. The For Honor diss track shall stay up for as long as possible.
Alright. Persona, you made the best diss track in the history of For Honor.
I think I made the only diss track, to be honest. The only For Honor diss track. Hell yeah.
Desperation and trust are seldom allies. With the Vikings and Samurai forced to flee from Ashfeld, the Vikings decided it was time to sever their alliance with the Mire. The Samurai fled deep into their territory, with their once Viking allies hot on their trails. The Samurai hadn't suffered losses this extreme in years, and now they were at risk of having everything fall in on them. In an act of defiance and perhaps even madness, the Samurai lured the Viking forces to a village deep in the jungle of their home, known as the Canopy. The Vikings, certain that the Samurai would be cornered here, gave chase without thought or hesitation. Instead of weak and frightened Samurai, they discovered a secret weapon of the Mire that they had not anticipated. The Hitokiri. Once they were simply executioners, dealers of judgment to criminals and evildoers, but being surrounded by death and sin all their lives corrupted their view of the world, building in these warriors a terrifying philosophy that life is painful and death is its release, salvation, and to the poor and suffering souls in this world, they will offer this release as a mercy. To protect the Mire from their mercy, the Emperor had put tight sanctions and leashes upon the Hitokiri. Until now. Now, as long as their brand of mercy was given only to the enemies of the Mire, they were now free to act as they saw fit, and the Vikings would feel their compassion firsthand. Blood flowed through the forest as the axes of the Hitokiri severed heads, spines, and limbs like twigs. Terrified and broken twice, the Vikings were again forced to abandon their invasion and escape to Valkenheim, with their tails between their legs. The Samurai, though tempted to pursue, knew better. They remained in the mire to lick their wounds and contemplate their next moves. The Knights, meanwhile, encouraged by the Vikings' clear retreat, chose to give chase and pursue them. If the Vikings were so brazen as to attack both Ashfeld and the Mire, perhaps it was time they too felt the weight of an invasion force. Still, most knew they couldn't handle it, after the way they'd been dealt with by Sakura.
Hello, I am Kelowe 96, the #1 Hitokiri and the #1 Warden in the United Kingdom. I played this game for just as long as Mr. Gerstan. We used to bump into each other a lot back in the day, and I think through that competitiveness we became friends. But it took a while because he's German. Anyway, Hitokiri. The character of Hitokiri is designed to be intimidating, both in appearance and statistics. Everyone's reaction to fighting Hitokiri is always either an eye roll or, oh shit, no one likes to fight a Hitokiri. And I wanted my opponents to feel that every single duel. I also wanted to create the ultimate Hitokiri in terms of fashion, so like a look that defined the character's essence, and that's what made me create the Demon Hito, which features in a lot of the videos online. The character was overshadowed a little bit by Raider's rework, because Raider really needed a rework, and Hito wasn't so much in the spotlight back then, and then over time he became more noticed. But when he was, there was a lot of backlash. He was perceived as broken by a lot of the For Honor community. The reason for that, I think, was down to three main things. The fact that he had infinite hyper armor on his heavy chains, combined with the damage per heavy, and the kick/sweep mix-up, which was more or less unreactable to most players unless you're at like top level. The movement of the character, so the way the character plays, is focused mainly on winding up, charging something powerful and then releasing it, forcing the opponent to make a guess. Fighting Hitakiri once he is in flow state is very difficult because of the fact that he forces the opponent to make a read between a level 1, 2 or 3 heavy and a level 1, 2 or 3 bash mix-up, all of which are feintable into Godbreak. The reason I mained Hitakiri for such a long time, and still do, was for one reason. Winning. I wanted to win. I was initially fighting and playing this game on 30 frames per second and just couldn't react to things. So playing Hitakiri allowed me to compete. I featured in some big YouTubers' videos and content, including Havoc and King Angelus in the #1 series. Ultimately, I wanted to prove the point that you have to have a high level of skill to use the entirety of Hitakiri, and I wanted to demolish the ideal that Hita players are brain dead or not good at the game. And the video evidence of that now exists, and I feel that I have made that possible. So yeah.
He felt smooth. Like, I remember back when I first started playing him, like season 1 or even beta, he was just so jank. It was always so many hard feints, and he had no opener really other than doing a neutral zone, which is not great because it deletes half your stamina bar, and usually people just wait it out. So now he had like options. It was weird, and everything blended into everything, and it was quick, and like, the hyper armor on almost every attack, so you didn't care about the enemy, like they couldn't do anything to you other than like bash you. It was crazy because I knew he was getting a rework and they were going to try and make him better, and I was excited, a lot of people were excited, but I didn't know they were going to go that far with it, and god damn. There was never like any downtime really for the enemy to get in anything. They always just have to be watching you and trying to read what you're going to do. And then he still had his dodge guard break, so he was nuts, and it was really fun. it was scary playing against like another raider. Even as a raider, a lot of times I remember just no one stopped pressing buttons. Like there would be 2 raiders fighting each other, and you'd just be doing light heavy chains with hyper armor, and just whoever dies first, like that was the goal. Like no skill, no strategy, just trying to delete that health bar as quick as possible. So it was a good time for me.
While overshadowed by Hitakiri and Raider, Lawbringer also got some big changes in this update that changed the entire way he functioned, from a defensive turtle to a more offensive hero. His shove and block was entirely removed, but for that his bash guaranteed damage now. Furthermore, he was given more change, with no double light chain to stop him from light spamming, and his finishers became all unblockable. A minor change that also happened was on Kensei, whose side opener lights are now 500 milliseconds, while keeping their insane range, turning him even more of a light spammer. We saw 2 events this season. Shadows of the Hitakiri, which was kind of like kill confirmed from Call of Duty, but you have to kill the minions to get souls. And the second new event was another joke event, Larry's Vacation.
Oh, Larry's Vacation. Oh my god, I remember that. I think it was just a, vacation for that NPC that dies a lot in that executions customization menu. This one was like a reveal. It's like, oh, Hammer Hero, holy shit. But it was cool that they gave him a break.
It was, in a word, shameful. The Vikings had thrown aside their honor first to ally with the samurai to defeat their enemy, and even they could not claim victory in this. Then when they attempted to backstab their allies to get an easy win, they were defeated and routed themselves, and now they fled to Valkenheim like frightened sheep chased by wolves as the knights pursued them with a will to destroy. Left without any recourse and not wanting to lead the knights to the mainland of Valkenheim, the Viking clans chose instead to turn their sails to Stor's Stronghold, an island fortress off of Valkenheim with a very dark secret. As the knights made landfall, they prepared for an easy fight to clean up the last vestiges of the Viking forces. Instead, they were met by a force they were unaware even existed. The howls and roars of zealots rang in the stormy skies as the Jormungandr cultists appeared with hammers raised and fury in their hearts. These cultists were once children who suffered skin or physical deformity and were left on store where they could be hidden among their fellow pariahs. The community born of these forsaken individuals formed a cult around the legendary World Serpent of Viking lore. Believing that they were the offspring of the World Serpent itself, they venerated the great beast as their god and savior. Now, it would offer its strength to its children as they dispatched these night invaders. The knights would flee store in a panic, telling tales that defied belief, of giant serpents rising from the sea, of hammers that spelled lightning and thunder, of gods walking on the field of battle. But with this battle's end, and the three factions were now forced to retreat to their holdings, fearful of what the future held, would they be destroyed by a cataclysm, or by the monsters they had unleashed themselves? Regardless of the answer to that question, it was clear that the Vikings had found sanctuary in store, and with Hulda.
What's up everybody, I am Anvux, as you know, the previous and to this day #1 Jormungandr. When Jorm dropped, his moveset was, in my opinion, one of the coolest ever created by Ubisoft when it comes to a For Honor character. Imagine you go into a 1z, you parry one heavy, press the follow-up, then immediately your opponent is out of stamina. That's what you can imagine Jorm was. Jorm was, in my personal opinion, the most harassing char ever. The way you used to play Jorm was you just sit there and you either block a light and either GB, or you throw your neutral bash, which is a read or a reaction test when it comes to your opponent. Jorm's punishes are incredible. 90 damage out of your opponent being out of stam without any damage boost for free. Or infinite combos. You could repeatedly press light combo bash, light combo bash, light combo bash until you had like 1 bar of stam left, and he repeatedly fell over, and then you could hammer slam for a free 50 damage, which basically was a one tap, and there was no way to counter this. It was so freaking cool. That's why I loved playing Jorm. That's why I got famous for a playstyle that I just stare into your soul and just abuse Jorm's pressure he has. And what made Jorm so good was the pair of getting revenge, having the perks, and having your tier 2 in the minion, which gave you a full shield every singular time you hit a hammer slam. And in Revenge, you had, while during your hammer slam, super armor, which means it was uninterruptible by any means inside the game. You get bashed, you don't care. You get lighted, heavied, or anything else, even a feat thrown at you, nothing could stop you. And then you could just repeatedly, over and over, deal 65 damage off the bat with the hammer slam in Revenge and get full shield. That's why a good Jormungandr was pretty insane. When it comes to the public image, it was a double-edged sword. I'm gonna say a lot of people actually liked Jorm, but also a lot of people disliked him. You have the satisfaction of having such a cool character, but I can also get it when you play against a person that sits there like a brick wall, then you throw any attack, you just get parried, and you're out of stamina. And I'm gonna say 50% of the community liked him, and 50% didn't like him.
On year 3 season 3 we got a new breach map called Stronghold, and we also got a lot of changes on properties, attack speeds, recoveries and walls. The only one worth noting is the Bushi, as she can no longer counter guard break within their hidden stance, but for that her lights have gotten faster. Though PC players can still consistently react to them, making it still one of the worst duelists in the game. We also got a new event, Wrath of the Jormungandr.
Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite events personally. It gave Breach a really serious twist. So there's this big hammer, this giant snake off of the side of the map would like summon it in. You'd see like a giant lightning strike or something. But once you got that hammer, it was so awesome, dude. The hammer had 2 attacks. It had light attacks and it had a heavy attack. Your character jumps off the ground and starts levitating and makes a big red indicator where he's going to land. And once he lands and drops that hammer, it's a big one-hit kill lightning strike. This shit was very fun.
While the three factions fought their desperate wars for power, releasing their harbingers upon one another, the Wu Lin were consolidating their own resources and forces. At Chang Pass, Emperor Gao Lei had his finest alchemist and advisor Sunda, along with his specialist warriors the Zhan Hu, working tirelessly on weapons and projects to give them an edge in the coming wars for Heathmoor. However, unexpectedly, a massive explosion in Sunda's tower put the entire fortress on the defensive and completely unawares. With the Wulin struggling to figure out what had happened and what had been the cause, another force appeared. An unknown legion of knights, bearing colors and banners unknown to the Wulin. This legion, the remnants of the Blackstone Legion, appeared and attacked in force. The Wulin mounted a desperate evacuation attempt to get their emperor to safety, but to no avail. They were caught, captured, and held by the Blackstones and their mysterious new leader. Emperor Kelowe was exiled back to China in shame and defeat, and Sunda, too brilliant and cunning to leave alone, was recruited by this mysterious leader for purposes then unknown. As for the Wulin themselves, all were forced into servitude to this new power that was rising, and only those that were not at Chang Pass during the siege were left to their own devices. But every Wulin would curse the name that they felt had betrayed them. Sunda.
Year 3 Season 4 saw the release of a new Wulin character, Zanhu. Zanhu is aesthetically very similar to Kensei, a hero with a long sword and an elegant personality. He was the first and last hero to have unblockable finish and light attacks. He also had 2 dodge attacks, both unreactable and coming from opposite sides.
Zanhu on release really wasn't that good. His gimmick was that his finisher lights were unblockable, and that's cool and all, but they were easy to react to most players. So the mix-up was rather, does he throw his unblockable light or heavy? Which should I try to parry? Back then, almost nobody could differ between lights and heavies, so that was at least somewhat viable. Then again, it was hard for him to get into that mix-up in the first place.
We also saw long coming nerfs to Raider, whose stunning tab was removed and renamed to Storming tab, and to Itakiri, whose hyper armor got shortened. The event for the season was Zanhu's Gambit, a PvE event where you have to escort the Emperor out from the city across the map without him dying from bots in Kiang Pass.
When deathballing would happen, it was definitely a pain in the ass to deal with, and depending on your team, there's just nothing you can do. You're either too bad or just the map is just bad. Like Forge, oh my god. Forge just is like peak deathballing. You only have like 2 lanes to try and get away, and they can just body block both, and then you're just screwed. And the one lane has like minions filled with it, so it's hard to get through. And then from them getting back to the other point that you're trying to back cap and take from them, like they can just zip over there. Like it was ass. But when you're doing it, it's really fun. When you're stomping the other team, it's a great time. There's an old Donkey clip, video game Donkey, I don't know if you watch him, but where it's him ganking someone with his team and like just destroying them, and he's essentially just saying, yeah, like this is great, this is a lot of fun, I love this is the best, this game is sick. And then the second clip is him being ganked, and he's like, this sucks, I hate this game is awful. I'm like, that's literally all of For Honor. It's so simplified. Just when you are deathballing and like ganking, killing the team, it's a great time, it's so fun. The synergy, like the kind of confidence you have, and just how like good you feel just destroying these people over like a virtual screen is just like great. But then when you're being deathballed, you just can't escape it, and you just see your Dominion score being so low while theirs is like now maxed, and you just have to live out this match. It sucks. So any move that just prevents people from playing the game is just obviously the moves you use, like any grabs, any big throws, any impales, like charges. Sometimes you don't even have to attack. If someone's trying to do a 3v1 and they're trying to do these cool moves, sometimes I don't even try and kill them. All I'm trying to do is stopping them from attacking. So I'll just purposely block their attacks, or I'll try and parry them on purpose, but I won't try and throw anything into them. So like you can just try and be like the wall. You can't die if they can't swing. It's a kind of a funny concept, and I don't hate it.
Gradually, perhaps even naturally, the signs of the cataclysm faded. The storm ceased, the fires died. The coming threat of a new apocalypse began to flee from sight, and with the imminent threat of destruction gone, the 4 factions, Vikings, Samurai Knights, and Wulin, all had the opportunity to look around and see what had become of their war. Mindless slaughter with no end in sight. The animosity and hate began to dry up, and like rays of sun piercing through a cloudy sky, hope began to build in the hearts of the faction leaders as they lay down their arms. Ambassadors from all 4 factions gathered together in a sacred place known as Wyverndale, where a truce was declared. The Truce of Wyverndale saw the 4 factions set aside their differences and come together in peace, camaraderie, and hopefully lasting kinship. Games were declared, celebrations to the end of the wars, feasts were had, and tears ran from the eyes of weary warriors and loved ones as they promised of peace was at last standing before them. However, beneath the surface, a cancer was growing, and none could foresee it until it was far too late. But, at least for now, there was hope.
Starting with Year 4 Season 1, the game went into a new direction. We got new developers, new ideas, new plans for the future. From now on, there will be only 2 new heroes each season, at Season 2 and Season 4, and the game will have a much bigger lore theme around it. We also got a lot of minor tweaks on heroes, but besides the removal of certain option selects, which a lot of competitive players long asked for, nothing groundbreaking changed.
Just like every other live service game at the time, For Honor introduced a battle pass with a free and a premium version with cosmetics and all yada yada. It did start the trend, though, of Ubisoft releasing a new emblem outline for every season because there are always 2 of them.
We also saw the return of Carousel of Death and a new crossover event with Prince of Persia.
This event was another one of my favorites. Prince of Persia event was 10 out of 10. Down that harbor elevator on A Point, it was replaced with moving death wheels that are wall mounted. But there was a rogue NPC. He would literally just beat the shit out of you. He had that time dagger, manipulated time in a way. Once you killed the NPC and picked up the dagger, it was just absolute mayhem. I think you could make like a giant AoE explosion. It would just one hit you. Absolutely insane.
I think when it comes to like specific seasons, the first year of this game was like the best. Like all of the like seasons that came out, the characters, the reveals, the drops, the events, the customization, like the Scream mask for the Halloween event, everything they dropped in that first year was fire. They dropped new maps, new factions, you know, with the Wulin that came out with Marching Fire, and then I feel like after Marching Fire dropped, I don't know, I feel like it just went downhill when it came to like events, content, stuff like that. You'll have like occasional stuff that comes out that's really good, like Carousel of Death, the 3-person free-for-all, like stuff like that that's really cool, but they really haven't done anything since, I'd say, Marching Fire that's really been like game-breaking when, you know, something drops and you're like, holy crap. Because when March of Fire was announced, I mean, they got like what E3 or whatever that event was that it was announced on, and everyone was freaking out. It was like a brand new faction. It was almost like a whole second new game dropped. But after that, I think Black Prior was released. He had a map drop with him. And since Black Prior release, we have not got a unique, keyword unique, brand new map in this game since. And that was years ago.
Not all were joyous and excited for the proposed peace. There were some who felt it was a bitter poison to the mouth, an insult to history and time and to human nature. For one night, Astria, the truce was a step too far for her. A devout follower of Apollyon's ideals, Astria believed that she had been given a vision from the god Horkos to follow up and finish Apollyon's work. She sought out the remnants of the Blackstone Legion, the destitute and all but forgotten warriors who had been shamed and tossed aside. She also sought out the harbingers like Vortigern, Hulda, Sakura, and Sunda, all of whom felt that this peace would force them back into the shadows of obscurity. Through these forces, she forged a new power. The Order of Horkos, a military body with the goal of ending the truce and ending these lies of peace. And to fulfill this, Astria used the secret weapon she'd had Sunda help her create, Draconite corruption. Through the use of a dangerous and unstable mineral called Draconite, the Order of Horkos launched attacks across Heathmoor, spreading a horrid plague of corruption and killing thousands, all in the name of ending a supposed peace and start an age of tyranny.
So when Warmile was released, their initial moveset was based on a lot of the fight between Apollyon. So it felt a lot like playing Warden, but with some of the enhanced moves you saw from the campaign, such as the claw attack. The community's initial reaction was mixed, to say a word. A lot of people reacted incredibly negatively to her, not very balanced feats. In Dominion, especially, you were capable of wiping out an entire team with a 1st or 4th level feat. The best strategy was just to go all corruption based and just nuke the enemy team over and over again with these stacking feats. There was a very quick patch not too long after. Some of the first bits of fashion for them were Apollyon set, where you could customize your warmonger to look exactly like Apollyon. This resulted in a large number of people just cosplaying the character, and a few of the more roleplay heavy people going as far as messaging people in-game talking like Apollyon, which, if you weren't obviously familiar with the campaign, was a strange period of time to be playing For Honor in. I was really excited by the concept of playing a character that was inspired by my favorite character in the campaign. I'd always been invested in For Honor's lore, so when the characters were released, it kind of just called to me, almost like the Green Goblin mask from Spider-Man, until I bought it. I just quickly fell in love with the character and their moveset, and it just felt right to play. And over time, I continued playing them until I'd maxed out the rep on the character. Even then, when I tried to play other characters, I couldn't be parted from Warmonger for too long, and always just kept returning to them, as they kind of reignited my passion for the game in a lot of ways. Everything ranging from their movement to like their feats and different abilities, even their fashion, was just what kept me invested in the character for so long. Even with me managing to become one of the higher ranking Warmongers in the UK for a little bit, every other character, their moveset and the way that they played didn't feel as satisfying, like on a personal level, to the way that I played Warmonger. I just feel like Warmonger was the character for me.
A problem with the new hero was that no one knew what to call her. Was her name Astria? Was it Warmonger? Or was it just Apollyon? Of course it was Warmonger actually, but it was really stupid how she had 3 different names attached to her.
Besides the release of Warmonger, we also got a Centurion rerocking this season. He can now do a jab after every light attack, and he can also feint his jabs, while at the same time getting his cutscenes removed to keep him balanced.
He wasn't a team fighter, but Cent had a major role in terms of the feats that he brought, and everybody was just waiting a slight buff to his kit in order to actually be able to use such strong feats that Cent has. Bugio, Phalanx, you name it, everything that he has just stacks damage, allows for support, is just great. Warmonger has to be included because infections for everyone. People call it COVID. I have COVID, and there's no team fight anymore because no one can be near anybody because it's 10 damage if you stand anywhere in the near vicinity. It was darn wild.
Yeah, so the Warmonger event, that was pretty intense. Fighting 4 Warmongers with corruption, like that was kind of brutal. Fighting the Warmonger boss was just so different. And it was so aggravating with the corruption. We hated the corruption, I hated the corruption. When we saw that as a feat, we were like, God damn it. But it was still a cool event, and character released not too far after.
The season saw also one of the biggest changes in the history of For Honor with the infamous CCU updates that would increase and standardize the speeds of many bashes and lights in the game.
CCU, the most controversial season ever. The meta shifted like it was just the spectrum of frequencies of light wave, okay? It was crazy how much this impacted every single facet of For Honor gameplay, okay? Warlord and BP had the strongest offense and defense all together. The differentiating between these two in duels is almost impossible, right? I'm just speaking from heart, okay? They are able to stop you from just existing while out of stamina because every time they bashed you, you did not gain stamina, while the indicators were faster. Now, in my opinion, okay, don't let Garston listen to me, you need a nerf on Warlord at this point because holy crap, he's got all of the option selects that Conk lost. This brother has it, and he's, in my opinion, at the top here, but I digress.
Okay, yeah, whatever.
Whatever. Posting's so bad, I'm doing everything.
If Astria assumed that conquering Heathmore would be swift or simple, she was sadly mistaken. There were holes in her plans and clear points of exploitation. For one thing, to continue making use of her Draconite corruption, she had to mine the material, which was dangerous by itself. Those exposed too long to it suffered horrible mutations or sicknesses before a painful death. Only one blacksmith, Ilma, was somehow able to withstand the material and forge it. For this reason, Astria needed her services to forge weapons from the mineral. But there were other interested parties. Renegade rebel groups began cropping up, attempting to undermine and break Horses' hold, attacking her bases of operation, and even working to spring Ilma from her servitude to Astria. While not a great threat yet, even a small spark can lead to a resistance.
Content-wise, was Year 4 Season 3 pretty much a nothing burger. We did, however, get a new duels map, Belvedere, which was really just Sanctuary or Ranked Sanctuary, but for the villains.
Tales of Rebellion was pretty cool. You had this big Viking that had a massive anvil on their back, and you had to escort them, keep them alive. They had to reach the end and finish forging a giant rock scythe. You were able to pick it up and use it, and you used it against other boss NPCs, and the customizations were also pretty cool.
Fight Club, really, I'm pretty sure that it started with just kids in MM. They came up with the idea, you know, kids just want to do customs and brawl it out with each other. And when there's a large group of people that play very late at night and they're smoking and shit and they're bored, you know, we just developed this kind of king of the hill type of deal. We called it Fight Club. I think it's the most popular way of playing customs. There's a lot of kids that do like 2v2 brawls. That's really what I was doing. Like I was doing group hosts for that for like years straight pretty much. But yeah, a lot of people like to do fight clubs, the more casual side of players. I think the more competitive side are in like real twos and brawls and stuff like that. People either, you know, like if you kill somebody, then you keep going, or there's somebody that, you know, another way that you can play it is there's somebody that just picks. But the things that are consistent is there's always going to be people watching and people will get their ones. And, you know, if it's a good party and the vibes are up, you know, people will try to give everybody a turn. You can start telling it's failing when the first bit of ego gets thrown out there. You'll just know, like, you'll just know. It'll start a chain reaction and stuff, and you know, people will start like swinging on each other before everybody's grouped up and stuff, and you know, some kid is fighting somebody, people are dying, dropping left and right, you know. That's how you know it's failing. I think that Sanctuary Bridge is definitely the most popular over the years. Like, I just remember that was like, there was a time when that was the only map that people would do fight clubs on, and then people started doing them in like Temple Garden and shit. And this is a real thing, like I'm not joshing. Like when I say people would only do fight clubs on Sentinel Bridge, I really mean it. Like it was just the kind of thing you had to respect if you do a fight club. Fight Club's my favorite game mode, at least in customs, because if you're late at night, you got some like smoke, you're just trying to chill, you know what I mean? You're just trying to relax, you get to meet some like sweet people on there, and honestly, like if you play the game as much as I do, you don't get mad at the game anymore. Like anything could really happen and you really just don't. You know, you don't like get aggravated at the game anymore, you tend to enjoy it more. Garrison just brought up a fantastic point. I just asked him, how do you feel about fight clubs, you know? Like, how have you seen them evolve over the years and stuff? And he said, simply, a lot less. And that is so true. There is like a plethora of players that I used to have on my friends list. My whole friends list pretty much consists of For Honor players on this account. And all of them used to do fight clubs. And now there's only like, it's like a handful left that I know, like from years ago. But it would be cool to see the old Fight Club OGs come back and stuff. I think if For Honor they didn't have Fight Club, I mean, every game has their thing that like brings the game together, like Talk to Chill People. For Honors is Fight Club. Rainbow Six Siege, you'll do like B-Wars and shit like that, but most of the time you're gonna be like talking shit and that type of stuff. But like in For Honor, to make up for the immense amount of toxicity that you'll encounter, there is Fight Clubs, and it's pretty dope.
It didn't matter how much the rebels fought. They were simply outnumbered, and they lacked the organization of Horkos. They had no central leader and nothing to unify them. Until the day he came. A lone warrior returned to Heathmoor after years of self-imposed exile. His name was Holden Cross, the right-hand man of Apollyon and a leader of the Blackstone Legion once upon a time. However, time had changed him. Old and gray now, he was wiser and stronger than before. He traveled the world as a mercenary, learning languages, philosophies, fighting styles, and cultures. And with this knowledge and wisdom, Holden, now known as Griffin, took up the position of leader for those scattered rebel groups, forming them into a coalition, a singular army to oppose Horkos, known as the Chimera Alliance. Now, with an actual threat, a true battle was now inevitable between Horkos and their new enemy. And under the dim light of a solar eclipse, these two forces would crash into a battle of utter mayhem.
Griffin on release
was a pretty interesting character. And his moveset, it had a lot of unique mechanics. One, you had the little double tap thing on any side, which was pretty neat. But his biggest thing that I think is what actually upset a lot of the community at the time was his mid-chain kick, because it was really quick. And back then, it did 28 damage. But the biggest kicker with him, no pun intended, his neutral bash that you only had to press back and guard break for. So you had no dodge forward Q, nothing like that. And it still attacked on whiff. So if you missed it, you couldn't punish it with guard break. You had to make a correct read more than once, essentially, to punish it. And it was disgusting, especially if you were going against more than one, because they could all just keep bashing you, and it was not fun to deal with. And as far as meta goes for this character, you know, at the highest level where a lot of the competitive For Honor that was out on PC, I think he was actually lackluster there, because the kick and the bash, I believe it was 600 MS, so it wasn't too bad on PC. In fact, it was on the weaker end, but everywhere else it was just gross. So on console, I would say he was probably very meta. PC, not at all. Now, during this period of time, because I was an Xbox player and Griffin was very easy wins, decided to do a blindfold video for him, and it got more popularity than I felt it should have. I think Griffin was just so frustrating at the time. He was all over Reddit, you know, everywhere, just people hating him because of his kick and whatnot. The blindfold video really took off. It's one of my most viewed videos by far. Really, all I had to bank on when making that video is just using that neutral bash and then just keep finding ways to get into it, because it was so spammable back in the day on console. He was such an insane hero. I wouldn't necessarily say overpowered, just easy to play. And if the opponents weren't very good defensively, you know, he might have been overpowered in that sense, you know. But if you were against a pretty confident opponent, someone who's really good, they could typically counter him without issue. And as far as his fashion goes, dude, he had top-of-the-line fashion, man. You know, everybody wanted that lion ornament from the campaign for Lawbringer. They finally gave it to Holden Cross as Griffin. I'm sure people are still salty that Lawbringer didn't get it, but it's alright. You got the actual Holden Cross who has it. But in addition to that, they gave him fashion for, like, every faction. So he has, like, you know, a knight outfit. He's got Wulin, Viking. Pretty sick fashion. Sick character overall. It was a interesting time in For Honor history, but it was a good one.
This season saw some minor hero changes and bug fixes, nothing very that big. Except for one thing. We got, finally, 60 frames per second on new gen consoles. A huge step on making console more competitive and more equal to the PC nerds. We also saw 3 events in the same season. First, Tales of Rebellion got followed up, as it will be in the next season as well. Second, the Frostmoon event, which was the same as every other Christmas event. However, this one was very personal for me, because this was when the Cherry mode got released, that I just love using whenever I can. And lastly, the big battle between Astria and Griffin.
You start in a fortress on a type of breach map. You need to protect the Emperor. It's just a walking champion NPC, a lot of health, as you progress through this staged breach-like fortress. And then at the end, 3 enemy champions would walk up. Nothing too crazy though, you know.
The Battle of the Eclipse was a victory for Horkos, but a costly one. Both Chimera and Horkos had lost a great deal of resources and soldiers in the battle, so recruitment was now needed. Thus began the Year of the Covenants, where Chimera and Horkos would begin reaching across Heathmore to rally supporters, allies, and recruits for their forces, while Horkos held their masquerade to determine the weak from the strong. Chimera held banquets to invite beleaguered warriors and leaders to partake in fellowship and communion with others. And in this way, the 2 factions would grow in power in the hopes of tearing the other asunder.
This is not just a gut feeling, okay? After some maths, we conclude length and round format of duels matter. More rounds and less damage on punishes give space to adapt. Fewer rounds and razor-thin life totals magnify lucky clutch plays. We did an actual scientific comparative analysis to other 1v1 focused melee games, MK11 and Absolver. In the most summarizing way possible,
Also because Garstan actually has a clock and the Glock pointed in my face. So let's keep this short. In MK11, for instances, you can only do extended combos by initiating with little damage first. In Absolver, everything is little damage. Okay, having in mind that the HP bars go beyond 1000. In For Honor, 2 of the lightest weighted reads, aka light attacks, equal the highest amount of damage you can do from a neutral, aka a heavy attack. A duel often ends before one is able to fully test an opponent's reads or punish their perceived tendencies. The pinnacle of what a fighting game should be and what For Honor marketed itself as in the earliest of years. 2016 For Honor is part of the history of risky bets, alright? And it's also a success story. At the same time, it goes without saying that it has matured and it can afford to ditch some key aspects of its identity that don't serve the core gameplay anymore.
Duels at this point were thought of as not a real competitive thing, and honestly, TSB, like my squad, we changed that. We were really a part of the culture of making sure that duels were like treated as a serious competitive effort, and I led the team. My rule was you had to be on the top 100 in the Grandmaster leaderboard to even get a tryout. I mean, some of the people that I recruited personally were Dez, Braden, Apple, Hammer, Danny Mitch. Those are the ones that ended up being influential competitively, and there was a big rivalry between TSB and Smoothbrains, TSB being my team. We were the one team that could actually beat them in their prime, so it really pissed them off. You know, they didn't like that they lost ever. And the entire community hated the Smoothbrains at this point, because at this point they were just they were kids and they were super toxic. So the entire community was on our side, and that really kickstarted, well, it didn't kickstart, but it really solidified that greatness of that rivalry.
This tournament was a big deal, not only because it had the highest prize pool of any tournament, but mostly because it was officially Ubisoft endorsed. Ubisoft tournaments have been very few prior to that point, so that meant a big deal for the competitive community, as now people had something to strive for, where they can make a name and actually earn some money. That got a lot of people in the competitive community to either come back or start making teams and prepare in levels where they hadn't before. The tournament itself was split into EU and NA. Prior to that, there was a big distinction between EU players and NA players. The interesting thing is that at that point, a lot of the best players in the game were underage, as in order to participate in an officially endorsed Ubisoft tournament, you need to be 18. So on one hand, some of the best players didn't get to participate, so we couldn't quite see the peak of the For Honor community, but on the other, there are some rumors that some things happened behind the scenes, like some people playing on other people's accounts, which later on in the Dominion Series 2 got uncovered and caused a lot of bans for some of For Honor's biggest names. Despite that, I still think that the Dominion Series was one of For Honor's biggest successes as far as competitive play goes, and I think that even to this day it is entertaining to watch. The team that won was Nemesis Esports, which was for the longest time considered the best team in the game, where no one expected them to ever lose, more or less. The team, as of winning the tournament, was comprised of Clutchmeister, Otto, Silencer, and Barakit.
The wars in Heathwar had not just had a physical impact on the people, but a spiritual impact on the natural world. As a result, a great drought swept the land. This was no natural event, but a true apocalyptic disaster. The sea itself that divided Heathmoor was dried to barren wasteland. Water became so scarce that even long, reliable wells were no longer able to give relief. People were dying of thirst more than they were from the war, and obviously something had to be done. Kamir and Horkos began searching for a solution to the water problem, but they were not alone in this. Deep within the mire, a reclusive and secretive group called the Kyoshin had also felt the change in nature and knew it was due to a crude imbalance. They, as the guardians of balance and order, they felt compelled to step out and correct the world, even if salvation be nothing more than just a mirage.
While Year 5 Season 1 gave us almost nothing, Year 5 Season 2 gave us quite a lot of changes. On Hitakiri, on JJ, on Gladiator, on Berserker, Zanu got a bash and got buffed greatly for that, and 2 reworks. On Shugoki, whose heavy until hard got removed again, but for this, his headbutt deals damage now and has crazy iframes. And the second being Aramusha. And man, it hurts to talk about this, because I made Aramusha for years at this point, and loved this playstyle very much. Aramusha's heavies got heavily slowed down, and now he got a heavy into bash mix-up. Also, he's now known for having his full block after every attack as a recovery to be dodge attacks. Now to the actual new hero and star of the show for this season, Kyoshin. Another samurai taken straight out of anime, with his covered eye, his whispery voice, and his full block that makes him swing his blade like a helicopter.
When Kyoshin dropped, every weeb west of the Mississippi ran to For Honor to see what he could do. His full block spinning was so wacky, it was like that one scene from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. His fourth beam would bring out spikes from the ground to trap all enemies at once. We were now far removed from the gritty, realistic game that was released in 2017.
He has a solid 50-50 bass and dodgeable heavy mix-up, but honestly, he wasn't a very special hero gameplay-wise. He had something for Black Choir mashed together with Griffin.
Kyoshin overtakes the third spot because of his ganking prowess. You could literally just do it like when you had Zerker or Raider ganks, except these ones were built upon it and fed less revenge. You GB for Kyoshin, Kyoshin starts his infinite, and you can even do it if you have another Kyoshin, which we don't talk about because that's cancer.
The Italian world of FH was an ecosystem isolated from the rest of the community scene. It had tournaments, practices, rules, and even game modes of its own. It was held together by a single nexus, which hosted the heart of the Italian collective, the Faced community, named Italy For Honor, that held the regulations for the custom game modes, as it serves as a database recording all the events happening within it. It was kept in check by several admins, which changed over time, and it even had its own coup d'etats and memes. And thanks to it, friendships were created, recruits were gathered, and clans were formed. Fight clubs, team-based. The single custom game mode has been the foundation of the Italian format of tournaments, which brought so much flair to clan wars but got progressively abandoned in favor of the international dominion-based ones, since this thing was nothing short of Martian to the FH comp players in the rest of the world. Kings, Hero Base. This is an Italian exclusive spin-off Angelus's #1 series. Rather than using community-based feedback for picking who should be the best representative of a hero, the Italian system simply uses democratic hero mirrors with no prior requirements. It was common to make a post on the Facebook community challenging a king for then posting with the screenshots as required. It prioritized who could win a hero mirror match at any given moment without any opinionated takes. Tournaments made of kings have taken place in the past, which were a mixture of dominion, skirmish, and brawl matches, all combined together to make the pool of kings in order to determine who could be the king of kings. The existence of these communities being intertwined with the game so much meant that if you were an Italian guy happening to play For Honor in some way or another, you belonged to a community that made For Honor so much more than a game, both in good and bad.
While Horkos and Chimera worked to solve the problem of the drought, and the Kyoshin warred on to correct the balance, the Vikings had a different view of things. It was not an imbalance, but a punishment. This drought was a test from the gods, and so to appease them, the Vikings began committing desperate acts of human sacrifice to please the heavens. And in answer, the heavens responded with an immense typhoon. Now, if the drought had dried the land to dust, the typhoon flooded high mountains and nearly sank all of Heathmoor. But even in this did the Vikings rejoice. This was not a disaster. It was an opportunity, a chance to prove themselves to the gods. For only true warriors can overcome and survive the tempest.
Year 5 Season 3 saw all the maps in the game get flooded, but what's important for us is that Raider got buffed. Now his unblockable takes barely any stamina to throw, so he can just spam his unblockable forever and ever after.
The Survivors of the Fog Dead by Daylight event was by far, hands down, my favorite event on For Honor. This crossover event was Halloween, obviously. The Trapper was the main enemy. Both teams had to kill each other, and if a team killed the Trapper, you obtained, like, obscene strength. And the power can wear off. You can kill the person who has obtained the power, and the Trapper can come back, and you can kill him one more time. It was such a momentum push after you kill the Trapper, because you just steamroll the team. And the cosmetics that came with it were peak. But the executions were even better, where you just like impale them and stake them right on a hook. I've been using it like damn near every day since it came out for the last 3 years. Hands down my favorite.
As for our rework, we got Orochi. And who better to talk about this again than my still good friend Chozen.
Basically, once Orochi got his kick, his unreworked kick, his insanely broken kick, he was relatively untouchable. Like, we all know Tiandi can just dodge recovery off of any of his bashes, but Orochi took that shit to another level. He could infinitely kick you over and over and over again. He could honestly introduce the infinite storm rush kick as well. But the main issue with Orochi's kick was it was unpunishable. And because of that, Orochi by himself was an unpunishable character. If he was smart, he would be able to use his dodge recoveries to punish any of your options, whether it was a GB, a light interrupt, heavy interrupt, whatever it was. And all in all, it was relatively unfun to deal with. He was able to open up people more. And because of that, he became more viable. You would see Orochi start to appear more in high-level lobbies or scrims. You'd see him become more viable in not just 4s, but 2s and 1s. And then his dodge recoveries also enhanced his gameplay. Essentially just this walking untouchable object in the game. You couldn't really hit him because if he was good, you could dodge recovery off of it. And when he got his bash, you couldn't punish his bash either because he was able to dodge recovery cancel off that too. And yeah.
When winter came, the flood did not recede fast enough, and so there were now frozen lakes and icy surfaces across Heathmoor. But what's more, the factions were too weary to even consider more fighting. Enduring a drought and a typhoon back-to-back was more than they could bear, so Horkus and Chimera both agreed to a brief ceasefire. However, while the factions licked their wounds and tried to recover, shadows on the frozen sea began to appear, heralding the arrival of a fleet of ships belonging to pirates. Led by the pirate queen Bo Yen, these pirates have no interest in the factions' war and only seek one thing: plunder and treasure. And as it would happen, there's plenty of treasure to be had in Heathmoor, lost to time, to memory, and buried under frozen shores.
The final season of Year 5, Frozen Shores, came with a new hero that absolutely no one in the community would have expected. A pirate with a gun from a new faction, Outlanders, the 5th faction now, who were just heroes from all parts of the world, from all timelines joining the battle. She was a dodge specialist who can spam unblockables like it's nothing. Her entire mix-up consists of unblockable 50/50s that deal a lot of damage, but when countered only deal minor damage back. Besides that, she can, just like Orochi, spam her dodge attacks and unblockables forever. We also saw some nerfs to Orochi and to Raider, who just got buffs this season prior. The only change worth mentioning is that Orochi can no longer spam his kick, which makes him a lot more endurable to fight. Last year we received a huge Shinobi rework that completely changed how he worked. He now has fast dodge bashes like Lawbringer, but with much more range and virtually zero garbage vulnerability. He now also has a short backflip after every attack that you can instantly kick forwards to or do an undodgeable side heavy, making it yet another bass undodgeable 50/50. He went from a very outdated hero to one of the strongest overnight, especially because it was so hard to punish him.
Shinobi's rework was just overtuned. Everybody agreed with that, okay? Whether it was shooting stars, which was immediately banned on competitive, whether it is the ease of how he just could be anywhere thanks to his speed and provide a very simple to perform gank, and the Sickle Rain doing so much damage and feeding almost no revenge, Shinobi just had it all.
I actually started out doing Dark Souls 3 stuff, but it didn't really blow up until I started doing For Honor things. I would just try and find a song that I wanted to use, and then go through all my clips and try and sync moments to the beat, and then add in funny stuff as well. But yeah, I tried to, I guess, blend like funny moment compilations with cool moments as well to just like a good song. That was kind of the idea, and it seemed to work pretty well. Before I even start gathering clips or doing this, I generally have the song I want to use for the video already, because I'll have heard it on the radio, I'll have found it recently, and I literally hear that's whatever song it is, and I'm like, ooh. And I start kind of imagining in my head, like I hear the beats in the song, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's like a fast part, I can do things there. This is a longer bit, I can have like a longer skilled play there. So I'm already planning in my head. So then the whole joke that new heroes are trash is that they never were. Like, they were always overpowered and broken and would just stomp and dominate. So the whole thing was like, well, I'll play Raider at the time, one of the worst characters in the game, and I'll beat the new heroes. Ooh, look, they're bad, and this shit character is actually good somehow. I was doing something different that no one else was doing, where I was showcasing, instead of showcasing the new heroes, I was showcasing me beating the new heroes with original characters. So I tried to do something different. I guess that really attracted people, but because it got so much bigger, and I love those numbers, when I would put out videos that didn't do so well, it would kind of bum me out a little bit. And obviously, as time went on, For Honor got less popular, and I made videos less and less, so I wasn't in people's subscription box or whatever you want to call it. My views went down. It did deter me a little bit, but now, even though I haven't made videos in a long time, and when I was doing little 10-second shitpost uploads, I kind of was more thinking back, like, it's not about like 100,000 people who are gonna click on this video once, maybe not even watch it all the way through, and then leave. It's like, I want to make the videos for the people who, like you, per se, that like want to see them and care about them. And like, because if you get a video that has like 2,000 views, like, okay, that seems like low in YouTube space. But if you gathered 2,000 people and put them like in a park to watch a video on a projector, like, that's a lot of people. I think the main goal you got to keep in your head is that you make the stuff that you want to make for yourself, and maybe also the people that care.
There are 4 sacred relics in Heathmoor that the pirates seek, and the first draws its origins to Heathmoor's ancient past. Long ago, legends speak of Lord Ramiel, the first warden, who swore an oath to the Wyverns, the once great guardians of Heathmoor's wilds. By drinking the wyvern blood stored in the chalice of immortality, Ramiel gained immortality himself, and through it, he was able to protect and defend Heathmoor from tyrants and monsters. However, Ramiel and the wyverns would meet their end at the start of the Cataclysm, when calamity and destruction fell upon them all. This legend would be told by countless peoples and cultures across Heathmoor, Knight, Viking, Samurai, and Wulin, of a time when there was no animosity between the factions but unity. Many look to Ramiel as an example of one who can put aside their differences to do what is necessary for peace, and this would end Heathmoor's golden age.
Year 6, Season 1, Golden Age, released on March 17th, 2022, brought with it the first ever hero skin, a customization that completely changes the armor and weapons of the hero you're playing. These hero skins would be expensive as hell too, being 25,000 steel. Besides that, we got a big event too, a Dominion variation in Citadel of our maps, with Raymond in the middle as a boss fight and zones on the side, and a dragon who can spew fire at you. The event was so cool, even I played it and I never play events. And lastly, for the biggest change of the season, I'll give the limelight to Raptorrex.
Man, being a PC player back then was rough. It was horrible. You would most likely have to wait more than 15 minutes for a match. And not only 15 minutes for a match, but 15 minutes for the sweatiest fights ever, where everyone was just continuously toxic to each other because of the fact that everyone had to wait so long. I mean, you queued 15 minutes for a 9 to 10 minute game. You spent more time waiting. This was a definite reason why a lot of people quit For Honor back then, was because what was the point of playing the game less than you waited for the game to start? So when Year 6 Season 1 came out and then they showed off crossplay, I think everyone in the PC community sighed in relief.
Toxicity in For Honor.
Oh, it used to be super toxic. It used to be on Instagram, was where people would meet. Screenshots became a really big deal during that time. People were just hunting for screenshots. And another thing I would like to note, in the early days, ranked duels actually meant something. Like nowadays, ranked duels are a joke, but like back in the day, people used to grind for that #1 ranking. Like genuinely, you would be fighting against each other. So it was awesome. Ranked actually was a place where like all the best players would go. In 2020 and 2021, it was such a big deal. Even we called it front page. Front page, if you look right now, you go to your profile and you click on ranking. You just click on it. It only shows the top 8, right? That's what front page is. It's the top 8. So the front page, super big deal. People were always sweating in ranked these 2 years, and it actually caused a lot of controversy. You'd screenshot people. People actually cared if they won or lost in public matches. Like, you would get screenshotted, and a 3-0 in a public match actually meant something, which today is like laughable. But that's how it was. That's just how it was back in the day.
The second of the 4 relics was one tied to a land far from Heathmoor. After the cataclysm, the Vikings were struggling to survive, and one Jarl named Bullthorn took it upon himself to travel the world and find a way to save his homeland. He found his way to Egypt, where he discovered a sacred relic, the Scarab Bracelet, a bracelet which has the power to restore the dead, to create miracles, and to heal any grievous wound. Though it was not his to take, Bullthorn took it all the same and returned to Heathmoor with it. But as punishment, the bracelet enacted a terrible curse on Heathmoor. Water turned to blood, frogs rained from the sky, and people died in horrible and excruciating agony, while Bullthorn himself was scarred and cursed for his part to play. Heathmoor might well have fallen to the curse had Neferka and the Medjai not arrived from Egypt to take back the bracelet and undo the damage it had done. Now the Medjai were here to stay, a reminder to never trifle with the curse of the Scarab.
On Medjai's release, he was in Dom, he was pretty much one of, if not the best character, because his hitboxes did not go coordinate with his weapon, and in my personal opinion, I think he's a very bad duelist. He has ways to play in duels. He has counters you can do. He has playstyles that you can use for duels. However, there are just so many better picks and so many counters for Medjai that it's just, you don't really need to play him. He's not bad at duels. There's just simply better characters, and there's a lot of better characters than him. As for twos, he's broken on twos because of both his grab and his hitboxes. You couldn't do much about it unless you were playing BP or someone like that. Also, his gank is infinite gank, which is his grab. If you got hit by that, you're pretty much dead. You're not going to win the game. The community was I feel like they were a little biased about Medjai. Some people thought that he was at least A tier in duels, both PC and console. Others said that he was at least C or B tier. I was one of the ones that thought that he was, I thought he was B-. As for Dom, pretty much everyone agreed the fact that he was broken. Dom, everyone agreed he was broken. Same thing with twos. No one really used Medjai in casuals and noobs. They didn't care for him, both duels, twos, and fours. He is a very low rate pick character for casual players and new players. However, when we get to high level play, since we're talking about Medjai release in fours and twos, he was a top 5, maybe even a top 3 pick if you had a good partner. His hitboxes, his sets, his counters, his ganks, his anti-ganks, he had it all. I was attracted to Medjai both because he was an Egyptian character and his playstyle. I love the Egyptians. I studied that for a while now. It fits who I am. It fits the player of who I am. His customizations, I was also attracted to that. I went to those as well. But other than that, it's my love for Egyptian lore, and yeah, I suggest giving him a try. He's very fun in fours and twos. You can play him in ones. I know a lot of people don't enjoy playing him in ones. I was one of the people that did enjoy playing him once, but I recommend him. He's fun.
His key stance was pretty lackluster back then, but like once this rework came out, we'll talk about nowadays, when he was able to dodge from key stance and whatnot, do some dodge heavies to the side, oh boy, the game has changed. Shaolin used to have a Viper's Retreat, just like Nabushi, and people are like, I've never seen that. Well, yeah, because they took it out. Shaolin's dodge to the side heavy, just a basic dodge heavy, used to be an undodgeable, but they took that out. And Shaolin's key stance undodgeable heavy used to have dodging properties. So you used to be able to dodge under attacks and whatnot, but they also took that out. You know, he also used to have a lot more bounce.
Bounce. We're bouncing now.
But he doesn't have that anymore either. He's more stationary with his movement. Back then, when you went to key stance, it had like nice little bounce to him. They gave it like a needy, greedy feel, which I love so much. I really wish they'd bring that back, that bounce to his movement. I like the fact that you're able to chain now from his key stance, because that's a game changer right there. Back then, you just crush and counter, went back to neutral. But now, when you crush and counter, you can go into a sweep, or you can fake the sweep into a dodge forward kick or a dodge forward heavy. I like the fact he now has an opener. Back then, his only opener was to run at you, unlock, and kick you. But now we have a dodge forward kick, which is great. His rework definitely changed the game, made him feel a lot more smoother, a lot more better. He speaks home to me and his flow. The sky's the limit with this character, man. Like, you have an open mind and whatnot, you think about what you want to do before you do it, you're gonna destroy somebody. But that calls it for me for Shaolin. This is my character. I'll always be the original, the blue Sunkai, baby.
Besides the release of Meche and the rework of Shaolin, we also saw another rework being released. Conqueror, whose entire kit got simplified, reduced to its basics. Now all his chain heavies are unblockable and his chain bash can be feinted. However, the season also saw some great nerfs to out of stamina pressure, as he couldn't drain stamina when the opponent is out of stamina anymore. Furthermore, Ubisoft would start to nerf stamina bowling more and more in the following months, nerfing Conqueror and Black Proya greatly and kicking them out from the top 3 in duels, as that was the greatest crutch.
BP and Conk got a massive nerf in terms of their out of stamina pressure. Their bashes didn't drain any more shit. Conk got double hammered because he was already stripped out of his option selects. However, he still had some complexity to his kit. The rework just turned him into an orange Ovni, right? An orange infinite Ovni. He still did not have a roll catcher, but a Conqueror rework made him just completely unplayable, even at high level 1v1s.
The season we also got our second hero skin, this time for Raider, and the community hated it for being too basic and not flashy enough. That's a clash Ubisoft will have with the community over hero skins for a long time.
Deep in the mire was once sealed a cavern that held back horrors untold. The yokai, the demons of samurai folklore. When this seal was broken and the yokai broke loose, the mire was plagued by their horrid possessing influence. Horrors lurked in the swamp, stealing away the young and the old. At the heart of them all was the mother of yokai, the Jorogumo. Only one weapon could slay the yokai, the Mamono dagger, a blade that can kill yokai, but then trap their souls in the body of the one who wields the knife. In order to save her brother and the mire, Maiko the Kinsei took up this dagger and waged a war against the Jorogumo and her yokai offspring. Though she was successful in slaying the beast, the many souls of the yokai she slayed were now at war within herself, struggling to regain control of her body. Desperately, she sealed herself away in the very cavern from which the yokai escaped. The only thing remaining to mark her legacy was the demon dagger.
Ubisoft has consistently standardized the game over the years, making the heroes more similar to each other and removing special properties. This season, all heroes who didn't have a dodge attack already received one, and there will never be a new hero without it. While I'm sure Arsh's competitive For Honor cheered for this, I didn't like these changes. It removed the uniqueness of heroes and them having to find unique ways to counter the opponents. And that's coming from a Warlord main, who greatly profited from these changes. Besides that, Apollyon has good hyper armor now, and all zones in the game cost much less stamina. And of course, it's Halloween, so a Halloween event was crawling upon us.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be so honest as a For Honor veteran. That event was ass. So this event was pretty straightforward. You fight a corrupted vanguard. They're like infected, poisoned, being under control of the Jorogumo spider, you know. You kill them, progress into the next zone, capture it, do it again, until you finally get to the spider boss, right? Which was the Jorogumo. There was lots of AoE attacks, weird ranged attacks from the Jorogumo. Once you hit a certain point with the boss's health, it started summoning characters for you to fight as you're also dodging and trying to fight the spider boss itself. It was very, I don't know, I thought it was pretty bland and standard. They could have done so much more, in my opinion. Even with the Joagumo concept, I just feel like the delivery was just the bare minimum effort kind of thing. The event cosmetics and executions were just not it for me. I thought the executions were just so unbelievably boring. You just have spider legs coming out of your back and you're just spitting webs on your opponent. It's just, okay, yeah, it's not that cool at all. It was not for me. Like, Halloween events are my favorite, and I was pretty disappointed with this one.
Twitch, honestly, I would say is one of the biggest influence on For Honor. Everybody comes together like a big ass family in many different areas. It's so cool. You can watch competitive play, you recognize people you see in game, like, oh, wait, did I just play with that guy yesterday? For Honor community is so big, but yet so small. Back in 2018 of For Honor, we had clans like Exiled, back when I was a part of Darth. It would be war on their Twitch, and it was just ridiculous seeing that go crazy. Like the culture, the toxicity that breeded that, the clan wars that breeded. That's the craziest thing I've seen on Twitch. You know, you guys probably seen crazier stuff than I have, but I just saw like how everybody just went to war with each other. They went to Twitch accounts to 4v4s. It went personal, and it continued to like 2020, where all of it stopped and everybody became like a truce. You know, you have big names in Twitch now. You got Blitz who streams on Twitch with like multiple viewers. You have a new upcoming rising Twitch streamer. You have Wexra who's on Twitch. You have Daddy Long. Everybody, if I start naming these people, you're gonna know who these people are because they're Twitch streamers. Fight clubs we hosted, we can spectate that from Twitch. It's really great. You wanna see For Honor gameplay, get to know yourself in the community, or grow yourself, go to Twitch. And then from streaming from Twitch, you can even go to the TikTok side, because now we can stream on TikTok, and that's where a lot of people are streaming on both Twitch and TikTok. Just like we have somebody named Walloose, my man Wally. He's even streaming on YouTube, you know? But streaming is such a huge part of For Honor, and it's just amazing. Honestly, what Twitch means to me is a big family. No matter what part of the community you're from the casuals to the filthy tryhards, to the toxic, to the non-toxic, to the kitties, to the dogs, you know? Especially my Shaolin students, my world of monks, my little monkeys, all of you who are inspired by Shaolin and watch me live on Twitch.
Horkos was losing. For every victory they claimed, they lost more than they gained. Chimera was always on their heels and they needed an edge. Fortunately, Astria had heard legend of a relic far away in the lands of Arabia, a sphere that could see the future, the Celestial Sphere. Desperate, Astria sent her merciless maiden Ravier to go and find it. Ravier found Arabia and used her wit and deceptive nature to manipulate and outfox the benevolent but naive Sultana. It wasn't long before she allowed Ravier to see the sphere, and when she peered into it and saw Heathmore's future, she gained knowledge that she probably never should have known. With it now known, though, she shattered the sphere, killed the Sultana, and fled back to Heathmore to reveal these secrets to Astria. But in hot pursuit now were the Ephira, the warriors of Arabia who sought revenge for the death of their Sultana. Unfortunately, their response was too little too late. Though they arrived in Heathmore to exact revenge on Ravier, she had already given her secrets to Astria, and with her knowledge now known, it would be impossible to avoid the shattered fates.
Ephira is an Outlander hybrid with a shield and mace. It has no full block. She is a paintable bash from neutral, a chain bash or undodgeable heavy mix-up, and can flip in all directions after any attack, after which she can throw yet another bash. Her neutral bash Fane was unreactable to absolutely everyone and extremely safe too, as she had quick recoveries and can throw crushing counters after her flip. Heavy finishers all have different properties. Her top heavy is undodgeable, her left heavy wall spreads, and her right heavy is unblockable. Furthermore, she can charge at you from far away with her bash, and has strong quick attack feats as well. It's clear from the get-go that she was a top tier hero in both game modes right on release, while also not receiving much hate from the community either, as you couldn't really spam anything with her, though she was definitely not too highly respected either. Besides her, we also got a Black Prior skin, some minor changes for a lot of heroes, and some major changes for Tiani and Valkyrie. Tiani's Palm Strike, his neutral bash, was moved up to his forward dodge, while also buffing his dodge recoveries after any attack, though Tiani can spam forward dodge light or forward dodge bash forever. Furthermore, his sound kick now guarantees a heavy and can be feinted too, kicking him up into the top 3 indults. Valkyrie's entire playstyle got yet again completely revamped. Yet again, she remained weak and unpopular regardless. Her heavy into bash was replaced with a heavy into full block, out of which she can throw a quick bash that deals solid damage. The mix-up was now, does the Valkyrie feint a heavy into full block? then Guardbreaker, and if the Valkyrie predicts that, shoot at the Heavy Fly. While it was unique, it cost too much stamina and time to really be viable.
Okay, so in general with For Honor, a lot of the content is based around clips and so on, not whole games, but like segments that show some crazy deflect or some crazy reaction, and that's what's considered impressive. And it's around 2021, I think, the beginning of it, like some guy for edits made a YouTube channel and decided to upload there his gameplay, and it was a very interesting gameplay. He rose to popularity decently fast, especially if like I knew about him, where I don't usually look at normal For Honor content, at least not clips. And the more you look at his content, the more you see things that are a bit strange, that don't make sense. In general, he was a pretty shady persona. He claimed he was a girl at one point, even though he was not. He also was on console and doing things that were extremely hard to do for top PC reaction players, and he was doing them consistently and claiming it's easy. He was like always like saying, I'm not even good, but I can do this thing, and if you can't do it then you're bad, even though the thing he was doing was humanly impossible. And a lot of the times you can't really say if it's just luck, if he got lucky to parry the thing at the correct time or dodge or whatever, or he was actually reacting. But once like you start looking at what he's doing and the way he's framing it, it was either he's scripting or he's faking his videos. And me and some friends, which a few of them were also from the competitive community, decided to take a look at it, as we have enough knowledge to like determine or at least make a judgment of what we think is legit or not. And after we looked at him, just for fun, for a while, to be fair, we have quite a few chats, we decided that there is no way his gameplay is legit. And apparently at around the same time, he had quite a bit of backlash from the general community that also thought that, you know, there is something going on. And we just made a Google Doc that proves that his gameplay was not legit. We did frame checks, we did general mathematics to prove that what he's doing is beyond human ability. And that's more or less it. I can just explain some of the process that we went through. It is a lot of his videos were showing things that like parrying, like deflecting 400 ms lights like every time, or dodging bashes that like no one should be able to dodge ever. One of the biggest things that was basically like a massive red flag is he was claiming to react to Kensei Bash, and he was saying, oh, this character is so bad. Kensei Bash is completely humanly unreactable, as it is 400 milliseconds. And dodge takes 166 ms to dodge, there is hidden indicator, yada yada yada, more or less. There is no way a human on this planet can dodge this unless they have 100 ms reaction time or more, which is not possible. Basically, me and my friends were kinda the people who gave the hard proof that what he was doing was impossible. At first he denied it. He said that just because he didn't know this or that doesn't mean he's cheating. The thing is, what we responded to that is, yes, maybe you're not cheating, but you're absolutely faking your videos. It's either or, so choose your poison. More or less he denied it until the very end, and at one point I think that it got too much for him because he couldn't deny it anymore and he just left. Like, I think that, like, unfortunately, the For Honor community is quite uneducated within the realms of, like, game mechanics, as there's a lot of the game that doesn't teach you. So there are still people that believe that he was legit and that he is really good, which makes me a bit sad because he's obviously not. But I think the general consensus is that people will remember him as either a cheater or a fake, which I think is very appropriate because that's exactly what he was.
The Celestial Sphere had given Horkos the knowledge they needed to finally gain the upper hand and force Chimera on the retreat. And with their newfound power, Astria had to prove that she had complete authority, and this opportunity was tested with the rise of a cult. This cult of the stake worshipped the 4 relics, the Chalice of Immortality, the Scarab Bracelet, the Demon Dagger, and the Celestial Sphere. They believed that veneration and subjugation to these items would lead to a brighter and better future for Heathmoor. But in their attempt to bring converts, they committed horrid atrocities across Ashfeld. Astria responded by forming an Inquisition to hunt down and purge this cult. However, the Inquisition proved just as cruel and destructive as the cult, putting to death and fire any who even came in contact with the cult, including innocent women, children, and elderly. One Inquisitor, Yen Chen, couldn't take the madness any longer. She turned on the Inquisition and waged a one-woman crusade against both the Inquisition and the cult. At last, she managed to steal the 4 relics and go out to sea with them, hoping that removing them from Heathmoor would finally bring peace. For in the end, between the two fanatical sides, who can say who was truly guilty of heresy?
Yorm was for a long time the stamina bully in For Honor, but after stamina bullying became weaker and weaker over the years, so did Yorm, until he was entirely useless in the meta.
So they reworked him this season and removed any last remnants of his bully past. Now he can do a fatal bash after his attack, has a forward dodge bash that deals damage, and is just a very generic hero now.
With almost the exact same moveset like 4 other heroes. He went from the most unique playstyle on release to the least unique in year 7.
The event for this season was a very edgy one. We got Heresy of the Relics. They turned Secluded Keep into a Dominion variation, with a boss enemy in the middle. They also turned the map very dark, and you can see corpses and blood, gore everywhere surrounded across the map. I still don't understand why they put so much effort in turning Secluded Keep into a Dominion map, but they didn't actually add the map to Dominion. You know, that's something.
New emblems. What do you think?
Whoa.
Look at that.
Very nice.
Picked it up from r/For Honor Emblems yesterday.
Good emblem.
That's magenta. And the art style is something called Minimalist Teto.
That's very cool, Mothy, but that's nothing. Look at this.
That is really nice.
Black, white, and blue. The crest of HSV. Founded in 1887.
Nice.
Jesus, that is really super. How did a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
I can't believe that Chozen prefers Garriston's emblem to mine.
But wait, you ain't seen nothing yet. Crossover symbol, event border, monochrome.
Very nice. Now it's the Aegis emblem. Like the ease of the layers, instant recognition of Dark Souls. My god, the sword even has a pommel.
Emblems have been a big part of For Honor's community since the beta. It's funny how you can associate that even after not playing the game for years. I can still remember the impressions some of these emblems made, but the biggest impressions were always made by the most common and reused ones, rather than any of the more independent ones. And some of them are just like nothing emblems. Like the emblem editor was bog standard, like Call of Duty shit. It had a limit to its expression, and it stayed that way for the entire game's life. Emblems should be a way to express yourself, and I think the way that For Honor players express themselves has always shown how stupid they are. You never really saw super cool emblems, you just see the same shit. The best you could do was just reference another game, otherwise it's just like bog standard tribalism. That's the absolute extent of expression through the For Honor emblem system. I was never amazed by anything. I feel like they're kind of like corporate art. And it doesn't help that it's basically just people being like, bro, I'm gonna put crows, it's gonna look badass, bro. And it doesn't look that badass, man. It never did, and it never will. But they try anyway, and they always will try. I remember this cross, the edgy emblems, the edgy Deus Vault emblems, they were overabundant, and I remember these people not having much personality. Having a red St. George's Cross emblem in For Honor is just nothing. Like, yeah, you're playing a night game and you're using some symbol. The best I could figure out is that you're from England, which I don't care. Punisher emblems would always give you trouble. You were never going to get into a game with Punisher emblem and be happy in any way. They were going to drag you down, either with their try-hard vibes or like just being and just making it worse for everyone else because they're dumb. A lot of For Honor players are like that, and there's a couple other emblems you could say are like that, but the Punisher one is just the most prolific one, and what it stands for is the worst. They think they're him, bro. They think they're on some tough shit. When they put on that Punisher emblem, you're dealing with someone who has some kind of issues, man. And it's a nightmare to deal with. George III made a anti-Punisher emblem, and it was awesome. It was the best emblem ever. No. That emblem was amazing, bro. That emblem was so sick. And like a Pepe emblem. Oh yeah, baby. The Pepe emblems. AI emblems have been there since the beginning. I think as soon as anyone saw the AI icon, it's just human nature to try to exploit that. They've been there since the dawn of time. They're trying to be the AI bot. I don't know who falls for it. If you're like a really new player looking at it from afar, I think some of them were actually genuinely tryharding for an advantage by having this AI picture. Uchiha emblem had some proper shitters, but there were a couple alright guys. I would like to say that I pretty much like any emblem that doesn't stand for ego. I want to see from someone's emblem, I want to peer into their soul, and I want to know that when I fight them, they're not gonna give me grief.
Astria was learning quickly that wars are expensive. And as she made more pushes into Heathmore and conquered more territory, she was beginning to notice a dip in her finances. And so to fix this, she sent an eager-to-please warmonger, Conquistador Vela, on an expedition to a world far away across the sea to pursue rumors of a city of gold. Vela and her followers found the city, Tenochtitlan, but they also discovered a civilization that guarded it. Believing she had conquered them, Vela returned to Heathmore with not only mountains of gold and treasure, but a prisoner for Astria, to demonstrate their dominion over the savages across the sea. But it was all a ruse, a trap. Following Vela secretly were ships full of the Ocelot, the warriors of the jungles from Mesoamerica. Together they freed their leader and attacked Vela, forcing her to flee for her life, and swearing that they would find Horkos and have their vengeance.
Ocelot was yet again another Outlander hybrid, an Aztec warrior with a sharpened plank as his weapon. His moveset was kinda the same as the new Jormungandr, with his fatal bash, his high palmer zone, etc. The biggest difference though is that he's a lot more light spammy and safer to use. He also had a weird stance that's only useful in the minion, out of which he can do nothing besides throw a long heavy that pins the opponent. He can also throw another bash after hitting his fatal bash, dealing high damage, but it was dodgeable. You will still see people to this day falling for that because of how rarely you see this happen in duels. We also got a Warmonger hero skin, turning it into a Conquistador, in contrast to Ocelot's Native American roots.
Man, scripting is a lot. It's just, I don't understand why people do it. Like, it has to be one of the most selfish things you can do in a video game. If we're gonna go into cheating as a whole, cheating sometimes makes sense, and I hate to say it like that, but it's for money. If someone's gonna pay me to rank them up, you know, like $50, I mean, like, it's whatever. But scripting is a selfish cheat that you're only benefiting yourself. There's no monetary value in it. You're just doing it because you couldn't be good at the game. And like, we see it all the time. If you look at the front or leaderboards, anyone in the first place slot is always a cheater. Now, is cheating a rampant thing in Frauner? No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people like to mess shit up, saying like, oh, this guy got like 5 right reads on me, he's cheating. A great example, there was a Reddit post about a pro player that was accused of cheating. And once he was accused, so many people jumped on the bandwagon because they wanted to hate a cheater. Was he cheating? It's still up in debate, but a lot of people have debunked it that he's not. But people are still going to hold on to him and say that he is cheating, especially because the day after, a new script was leaked that could be really hard to detect because it had variable timing. It still happens every now and then. You see it in matchmaking, I'd say 1 every 50 games. Someone will be either lag switching or scripting, it doesn't really matter. But if something looks really weird, I'm not going to be ashamed to say it. But to say it out loud in front of an audience would be unfair to that person. I think if you are unsure if someone's cheating, you should not go and accuse them of cheating until you are blatantly sure of it.
If Astria was concerned about the arrival of the Ocelot, she didn't show it. In fact, she was already putting the treasure she'd taken to good use, and even putting some of it into their Wulin allies, who were in need of support. The leaders of the Wulin, having all their money, hatched a little plan of their own. They hosted for the first time in years the Ghost Festival, and have invited all of Heathmore to attend. Of course, there are rules to the festivals, and breaking them will undoubtedly anger the spirits of the dead. Obviously, the Heathmore natives won't know these rules or abide by them. The Wulin knew this, and hoped it would allow them to turn the spirits of their ancestors against their Heathmore foes. But the result was not what they expected. Bai Gujing, the white-boned spirit appeared. A powerful and deadly ghost, she trapped the Heathmore people in her theater of bones in an attempt to slaughter them all. Only the timely intervention of Sun Wukong, the legendary Monkey King, would turn the tide on Baigu Jing and rescue Heathmore from the clutches of disaster. The Wulin, shamed and accused of the crime, were forced to flee once more as Heathmore attempted to pick up the pieces from this deceit.
You were fighting a type of like skeleton puppet in this arena. The boss can literally like go into the sky, disappear, come back down, throw a bunch of attacks, throw a bunch of shit at you. Like, it was just very bland. It was very forgettable. Think Joe Gumo event just with a skeleton with puppet strings, and he had a couple extra moves. I swear to God, I killed this thing one time, and I stopped playing the Halloween event.
The next step of standardization has come with the removal of reflex guards for all assassins and Shaolin. Now every hero has a static guard. It made them easier to use in low levels, but changed nothing in high level duels. We also got a Monkey King Wukong skin for Shaolin, and some parry changes for Lawbringer. And lastly, Year 7 Season 3 will forever be known as the Doomsday for Warlord, Conqueror and Black Primates, as this was the season they had their neutral bashes removed. All three were able to throw a bash after just 100 milliseconds into the forward dodge, giving all three a great tool of pressure from neutral that was unreactable to most players. However, Ubisoft had enough of it and increased the length to 300 milliseconds for the three.
Some people is like, it's a small change, it affects his offense massively. Trust. Okay, Garson would not pick me to be here if this wasn't the case, okay? Warlord?
Yeah.
Shut up. It's my time, okay? His bash is not as easy accessible as before, and his full block mix-up is not as easy chainable as before.
And with it finally kicking my beloved Warlord out from the top 3 in duels, where he sat for 13 seasons.
Welcome everybody to Soul Story's fashion contest. We've got a lot of great submissions this time and I'll be the judge of it. Okay. I'm liking the patterns you've got going around, but I'm not so sure about the symbols on your arm. I give it an easy 7, 8 out of 10. But I kind of feel like I've seen you before somewhere. It's probably nothing. Okay. The arms are pretty unique. I don't think I've seen a new shoe with those before. Looking at the emblem's quite nice. Got like a clown mask going on. Yeah, give it a solid 8 out of 10. Oh, okay, a warlord. There doesn't seem to be anything unique at all, though. It's just basic. Hold on, let me just type this up real quick. There we go. That's much better. All right. Where was I? Yes. For Honor fashion. Over the years of For Honor, there have been lots of different events. Some are hosted by For Honor's team or Ubisoft themselves, but the great majority are hosted by the community itself. One of the most consistent have been fashion events, where members of the community will put together their best outfits in-game and then confidently walk out to be judged by the entire community. Even my community, the Tribunal, has hosted a couple in the past, one of which Garrison even won. One of the biggest reasons I believe these events are important is that they weren't limited by skill or following. Anyone of any caliber could take part, and even have a small chance at winning, provided their outfits were unique or entertaining enough. A running joke within my own community was how the sole motivation of playing For Honor was that we could keep making more fashion and completing outfits. And even now it remains an important part of the community, with some even making cosplays of their characters, or using characters from For Honor in other media like D&D or even in their own writing. With some of the most recent updates in For Honor, you can even tweak the individual colors of your outfit using the game's materials to mix and match separate parts of your armor and clothing, or even apply symbols and paint patterns to truly make the style unique. And with the game's emblem system, it allows you to creatively make your own symbols. So I remember in one of the fashion events I took part in, one of the runner-ups for winning was a guy that was just Pepsi Man. He had a massive Pepsi logo strapped to his chest, and that managed to, with the community's boosting, basically soar all the way up the rankings on that fashion event. All in all, I feel like For Honor's fashion is an integral part of the game, and even for its 9+ years, it's still such an important part to the community and the game, and the lead focus of why many people continue to play it.
Astria already had a strong foothold in Valkenheim, but her control wasn't complete. The village of Maldor still remained, ruled by a wise Jarl Skard and his sworn brother Maddox. Skard had sworn his oath to Chimera and would never surrender to Horkos, which was unfortunate as Horkos had now surrounded Maldor and were preparing to invade it. They offered a choice to Jarl Skard: surrender and join Horkos, or refuse and be slaughtered. Skard would not surrender, for oaths are not only meant to be upheld when convenient. If he must die for his oath and his honor, then so be it. But his sworn brother Maddox had no such intention. He was a survivor, at any cost. When it was clear his sworn brother would never relent, he staged a coup. He killed his sworn brother Skard and led an internal rebellion, slaughtering all the Vikings loyal to the Jarl and taking control of the village himself, swearing fealty to Horkos. However, he missed one individual, Katla, Skard's daughter, who fled from Maldor just in time. She found Holden Cross, who instructed her to seek out the mercenary band known as the Varangian Guard. These mighty mercenary warriors were renowned for their tenacity and their loyalty. They would never break their oaths, and with Katla now with them, they launched an attack on Maldor to punish Maddox for his crimes. And though Maddox attempted to buy off the Guard, they could not be purchased, and Maddox was defeated, with Maldor being returned to Katla's control. She had finally brought an end to her uncle's treason.
Year 7 Season 4 brought with us a new Highlander skin, the usual Christmas event, and the first new Viking hero in over 4 years. Varangian Guard, or just VG for short.
I've never seen a hero fall off more quickly in terms of popularity than VG. It wasn't because she was weak, far from it actually. She was instantly one of the best heroes in the game for read-based players. Though, the reason was simply because how boring she was to play. She had the most monotonous play style in For Honor's history. Unblockable 50-50 spam a million times until the enemy is dead. No cool gimmicks, no personality, no fun attacks, no versatility. Just spam the same 2 good attacks forever until the enemy is dead. It feels like you're clocking into your 9 to 5 whenever you pick her. That's why she's the least played top tier in For Honor. It's not even close.
The way she interacts with these rankings is essentially like Blackbriar, okay? Same clunkiness, pretty good at opening offense, but then it goes into a different type of offense. Slightly less because he doesn't have undodgeables. What makes him the strongest thing in duels, especially this early on, was not just the damage that he was overtuned. It was not just the pinning after the heavy finishers, which means you had some wiggle room to do your offense after landing one of those, which means you could have continued if you had stamina. It was really about his enhanced lights from neutral. It allows him very easy initiation. And keep in mind, it's not just top guard like Shaolin, it's all sides.
A galera do Brasil não é competitiva. Quer dizer, eles são competitivos, mas eles não sabem como funciona o For Honor de verdade. Essa é a verdade. Então eu sou tipo o que traz essas informações. Cara, vou falar que a comunidade cresceu bastante. Eu vi bastante gente... Às vezes eu vejo muita gente diferente no jogo, mas sempre foi uma comunidade pequena. Tipo, você sempre vai achar os mesmos jogadores nas partidas. É muito normal isso no Brasil. Tanto o brasileiro, tanto o argentino, porque os servidores são juntos, né? É uma coisa legal você achar as mesmas pessoas, mas também é uma coisa meio chata, né? Que às vezes você quer encontrar players novos e existe aquela questão de o player já te conhecer e ele quita da partida. Eles fizeram um torneio com presencial, foi mó legal esse torneio. Eu nem era introduzido no competitivo do For Honor ainda, eu era um player mais casual, tava aprendendo a jogar. Cara, eu acredito que aqui tem muitos jogadores bons que jogam bem. Tem o que agora ativamente, que são fenomenais. Tem o Teus, que é muito bom em domínio, o 2v2, o Zela, o MDM, o Legends, que joga 1v1, já jogou várias vezes na gringa, os caras já até elogiou ele. Faz até as screenzinhas, né, as screens pra gente jogar, fazer uma coisa mais séria. E eu acredito que daria uma boa briga entre os jogadores do Brasil contra o da Europa. Eu acredito que os players da Europa e da América do Norte ainda são um pouco superiores em questão de habilidade, porque eles também estão mais habituados a jogar o competitivo. Mas não são muitos clãs, sabe? Os que são fixos assim mesmo é o Corujinha, que eu lembro que é desde o começo, o Black Pika e o Lost Hunters, eles estão bastante tempo, esses três aí. Tem o Nubringer, que era absurdo. Era o Nubringer e o Teto. Esses dois, pra mim, eles eram os reis da Argentina. Eu tinha medo de enfrentar esses caras. A galera é muito de boa, tranquila. Eles sempre gostam, porque eu faço vídeo ensinando, né, mostrando como eu jogo, e ainda faço um vídeo descontraído, tipo, acontecendo coisas engraçadas, eu dando rage, eu zoando o cara, entendeu? Então é uma coisa legal de assistir, entendeu? É um conteúdo tranquilo.
When the cataclysm struck Ashfeld over 1,000 years ago, legends tell of a single warden who had gone on to be called the Unsung Warden, her name lost to time. She was known for wielding the legendary sword of Ashfeld. It was said that when the orders and knights of Ashfeld were divided, the one who held this sword would unite them again. When the Vikings and samurai invaded Ashfeld to plunder its resources, it was the unsung knight who emerged and, with the united legions of Ashfeld behind her, pushed back the invaders, saving not only Ashfeld, but the ways of the knights. Though lost now, all remember the meaning of the sword of Ashfeld.
Year 8 started with a banger, because the highlight of the season wouldn't be the new skin, but the event mode, a 1v1v1 free-for-all, an actual 3-team mode in For Honor. A dream came true since day one. Unfortunately a short dream, as the mode was removed again when the event ended. I find it so stupid by Ubisoft that to this day we have completely dead game modes that no one likes, like Tribute or Skirmish in the game, but game modes that everyone loves, like Carousel of Death, Test of Metal, or this 1v1v1 mode that were played by everyone get removed after a couple of weeks. One of the biggest mistakes the devs have ever made.
PK's Softfang Lights became 33 MS faster, making them unreactable to even the greasiest PC nerds. And Highlander's Kick became feightable, and feightable bashes are unreactable, also kicking him up from bottom tier where he laid for so long to a decent character.
We got yet another Assassin's Creed collaboration this season, with Ezio Auditore being added as a hero skin for Peacekeeper, even changing the voice lines for him. Also Magi got buffed and nerfed at the same time. Now he can do a zone in the middle of his chains to switch between his cards, but his neutral bash got removed same way as for Warlord a few seasons before, and his lights no longer have hyper armor, kicking Magi out from the top 3, and now Shinobi gets back into the ranks. And on April Fools, they came up with something interesting this year. All heroes had their weapons switched around with other heroes. The switcheroo, they called it. I have to give Ubisoft credit where credit is due. Their April Fool events never disappoint.
When I started the Duel League, there were no duel tournaments, bro. I was the only one. And I was viciously mocked by the competitive community at this point because, you know, they were segregated. But I didn't care about, like, I knew that duels was like the future of the game. I wanted to make it like ranked, but good, right? So low queue times, you just show up, you drop your gamer tag in the chat, and I find you games, and you would go and play against a wide variety of players, most of them very, very, very good. Some of them the best in the world, some of them garbage, you know, but we allowed anybody to play, and it was first to 5, best 2 to 3s. You would potentially have to play, you know, the number 7 player, the number 15 player, the number 1 player, and then the number 5 player all in a row. And this is where Braden really got the reputation as clearly the best duelist on Xbox. He went 26-1 in sets, 53-3 in games, which is a level of dominance never before seen in the FHDL, really. You played a lot. Garistan still has the record for the longest win streak ever in the FHDL history, which is 26, still to this day stands. Loved you. I always appreciated you. Immortalum almost lost to Kenobi. Kenobi was a perennial punching bag, right? In the FHDL, guys that play a lot and they don't win a lot. I love those guys, though. You're talking about an extreme level of mental fortitude to do that, you know, day in, day out, keep losing. So all time, he's 18-66, and Immortalum is considered like one of the best players in the game's history. Kenobi almost won, literally cursing out Immortalum for light spamming him, and unironically, Immortalum had to light spam him to win because Kenobi was on old gen. I remember that one. That was a really good one. I have to talk about the Open. So before I went on my long break, I'm going to get the best 16 players in the world, and we're going to do a double elimination tournament. I got Brayden, I got Bean, and that was the first time they had ever been in a tournament together. There was this really big question, is Brayden the best player, Reed player on Xbox from the United States? Or is it Bean, this reaction freak from England that consistently won in tournaments? Also had guys like Topmine, Blitz, Ewab, Tuba, guys that were proven at the highest level. Like, this tournament was insane. I think one of the really big ones was SG absolutely throttling Topmine in the first round. Huge upset that nobody saw, but the next game would be even bigger. It was Blitz versus SG. That game, you can watch it on my channel, is one of the greatest For Honor games I've ever witnessed. Bean would eventually win. He won the first ones against Brayden. Brayden won the second set, and then Bean won the third. And very unfortunately, it made me realize that the game was still broken and favored towards reactors. You know, it just felt like Brayden kind of got cheesed, and Bean could react to basically everything. And my goal was to develop the game in 1v1s, and I sacrificed a lot of time to do this. As you know, Garrett Stan, you were very aware of how much time I would sacrifice for this, and I was very successful at it. You know, even to my own detriment as a player, very much enjoy the fact that there's all of these players now that are so much better than me. It didn't used to be the case. And it's been really cool to see the competitive side of For Honor really grow, man. Like, it gives me hope for the future of the game.
There once was a samurai swordsmith named Muramasa who crafted a sword filled with hate, malice, and bitterness. This sword, the Muramasa blade, was said to give its user the strength of 100 men, but in return, it filled the user with unquenchable rage and fury. Perhaps it was fate, then, that the sword was found by Master Katashi, a famed Orochi who had mastered his mind and body through meditation and the study of Zen. He now wields the sword and controls both himself and the blade in order to protect a sacred bridge into the mire. But the power of Katashi had spread far, and it reached the ears of the deadly Sohei monk Oniwaka. Oniwaka was a master of 7 weapons, and sought to claim the Muramasa sword for himself. And when he dueled Katashi, the two fought to a standstill. Neither were able to overcome the other, and it was then that Oniwaka truly felt humbled and chose to learn from Katashi. Together they rebuilt the concept of the Sohei and began teaching the way of 7 weapons to others, so that more Sohei could rise and defend the mire alongside the master of the Muramasa blade.
Soha is a heavy hero with 140 HP that has a very different playstyle to everyone else in the game. Soha deals little to no damage with his noodle arms and has 6 weapons for whatever reason. His overall lower damage and his insane health pool lead to him playing the game a whole lot different than you would imagine. Soha utilizes his early hyper armor in order to trade with opponents and gain momentum that way. I always like to imagine it like his health pool is his main resource. The lower his health is, the weaker he becomes. He can cheat his way out of the neutral game with his zone attack and regain momentum in an instant. Soha's soul make him into the hero he is. He has 6 unique souls, all of them being gained by landing a combo heavy finisher, either with his lights or his heavies. He can utilize his front step bash in order to start some momentum, but everything he does is based around one simple fact. He has a built-in nuke in his base kit. If he acquires each and every one of his souls, he can have a 95 damage swing. This leads to all of his attacks, apart from neutral attacks, dealing little to no damage. Soha in duels and Soha in Dominion are completely different dimensions. He can't really output the amount of pressure you need out of a hero in 1v1s. He isn't nearly fast enough to not be reactable. On the other hand, His ability to gain 3 out of the 6 souls by just landing 1 guard break makes it so that mistakes against him basically already leave you halfway out of the game. If he gets all 6 of them, you're out. You have to understand, Sohai is held back by 2 things: low damage and low stamina. Dominion gives Sohai the answer to both of his weaknesses in the form of Ancillary Might and with his perk Endurance. His first feat, Eye of the Demon, is possibly the strongest first feat in the game. By the press of a button, you can debuff an opponent from attacks of your entire team. His second feat, Soul Soother, is the only reason he's viable in Dominion. Every one of you out there who does not play Soul Soother, you listen to me right now, okay? I will find you and I will hack into your computer and re-equip Soul Soother, because how dare you use Smoke Bomb on him? With a very short activation time, Soul Soother restores the entirety of Sohai's health bar in an instant. Sohai can pick between many different designer brands to maximize his drip. All of his different armor variations make him look completely different, with plated armor or wooden armor across the board. One thing that sadly stays the same but would be too much effort is changing how his weapons look. His 6 weapons on his back look. When it comes to face masks, he also has some pretty cool options. Looking like a grumpy old demon, looking like a grumpy old man, and looking like a grumpy old man with a different beard. But I just have to pick his base kit masks, since it has become so iconic.
One thing that people kept complaining about for years was no new maps in like half a decade. But Ubisoft didn't have a budget to make some, so they decided to convert elimination-only maps into Dominion, starting with Cathedral the season before, and now Viking Village too.
Something to notice, how Ubisoft switched the content release around over the later years. When the game had a larger budget, every hero became unique emotes and executions almost every season. Then the budget got cut and they started to bring out universal emotes and executions. That the community didn't like. So after enough backlash, they came up with a pretty good idea: Hero Fests. Each season we got like 2 Hero Fests where individual heroes got unique executions and such, instead of universal stuff for everyone. This way, heroes are still able to express themselves uniquely, while also staying on budget for the now smaller For Honor staff.
Perhaps no Jarl in all of Valkenheim was as celebrated and beloved as Jarl Gudmundr the Great, a man who is said to have wielded the shield and sword of Odin himself. After his death during the siege of Svengard, the warriors of Valkenheim came together to honor his passing in the traditional way of the Vikings. In keeping with the tradition, it was required the shield and sword be broken so no other may use them. But they would not break. No matter what method was used, the shield did not shatter. And it was then that Gudmundr's legend was solidified. Just like the great man who wielded it, nothing could break the shield of Svengard.
So in Year 8, Season 3, Lawbringer got the update to where he can bash after any light attack, which was an insane change, because not only does that give him more options after his light opener, because beforehand he could only, light into heavy. Having the bash for the additional pressure essentially gave him a mix-up at any point that was not just block. It puts him directly into his finisher after he hits it and gets his confirmed light. Not only that, they gave him somewhat like a Centurion punch combo, where he could just keep going into it over and over, bash light, bash light. Man, it makes Lawbringer one of the scariest picks out there. Like, I've watched some competitive streams, and people are expecting people to choose Lawbringer in ranked, because he is just a scary pick. And his mix-up, it's not one of those where you can, react to parry flash and parry it, and you gotta make the right read if they're gonna do the bash or the unblockable. It was just significant for him. One more thing I want to mention. Long arm is no longer a bad move for duels, guys. It's no longer a bad move. It's now safe, and you get 29 damage if you hit it, okay? So stop saying long arm is bad. It's not bad. The recovery is stinky, but that's it. The damage is good, and it's safe, and you can go into more mix-ups after. That's all I gotta say for all the haters out there.
Besides Lawbringer's buff, we also saw a big Ocelot nerf this season. They removed his ability to throw a light attack after whiffing his bash. While he was never a top 3 character in any game mode, he was a strong character, especially in Dominion. But with this change, he became rather irrelevant to the meta. Lastly, we did not get a Halloween event this season, but instead another crossover event, this time with Destiny.
So, Light of the Guardians. Now, a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this. A lot of people loved it. Me, personally, I hated it. I was expecting a Halloween event. They cut corners and released a Destiny crossover event instead. It was just another twist and spin on a minion-focused Dominion. You obtained a certain power and whatnot after a certain point, and you could use it on A and C. It was objective focused with these abilities. It was weird. Everything was purple, Destiny themed. The customization for the Centurion and Lawbringer was cool. However, having no boss to fight after having 3 years straight of somewhat having cool bosses, that's all I gotta say for that one.
Astria has almost conquered Heathmoor. One push, one last great victory was all she needed. But she knew it was a gamble. Though she had not shown it, the setbacks she'd suffered thanks to the Ocelot, the Varangians, and the Ephira were beginning to take their toll. She needed a Hail Mary, some kind of advantage. And she got it when she received a message from General Zhe, an infamous general in the forces of the Wulin. He proposed an alliance. He would offer his Wulin forces to Astria, and in exchange, when she conquered Heathmoor, she would leave all Wulin in control under his command, naming him the Emperor of the Wulin. To mark this occasion, he would present her with his prized sword, the Starfall Sword. Astria was excited but wary, for Zhe was an opportunistic snake, ambitious and cunning. She knew he couldn't be trusted, but at the same time, she could not overlook this opportunity. She rallied the bulk of her Horkos army to meet Zhe at the harbor of Itrovatnen. There, Zhe and Astria would meet, and Zhe would reveal his true goals. He had made a prior alliance with another force, the Hatuns. These Mongolian warrior women had an ancient score to settle with Heathmoor, and Gul'jin, their leader, had agreed to fight with Zhe and name him Emperor of the Wulin if he led Astria into this trap. For the Hatuns do not seek war, but peace. Peace by the sword. Astria was unprepared, unaware, and at last the she-wolf was defeated by Gul'jin. As Zhe looked on at the demise of Astria, he knew, as they all did, that this was the beginning of a new era for Heathmoor. One for good or ill, none can say, but when it exchanges hand, only downfall can come from the serpent sword.
Khatoon puts a twist on well-established mechanics that we had in the game since the beginning. Her main way to start a fight are her soft feints, creating an unconventional way of attacking. Her running stance can both be used as a defensive tool and an offensive tool. Think of it as a Kyoshin sword stance on a timer. She can access her ferocious charge by either soft feinting an attack into it, or by dodging during most of her recoveries. Non-unblockable attacks thrown at her during that run will automatically be deflected, with no player input needed. She has access to a very fast light attack after deflect that allows her to stay safe while outnumbered. She can also use a hyper-armored zone attack in order to cleave multiple opponents around her. And lastly, she has a devastating heavy attack that pins an opponent in place and can wall splat. Since fighting against heroes with hyper armor was very problematic due to her lacking a deflect follow-up that can break armor, a later patch allowed her to flow into a kick. This didn't really make her any more oppressive, it just removed many lose-lose situations for her. Coming back to her running stance, out of that stance she has the ability to throw 400 millisecond lights, a 500 millisecond zone attack, and a very similar pinning heavy like her deflect heavy. This pin move led to her being extremely easy to gank with, because she could access it so effortlessly. Something that is actually worth noting about this pin move is that the pin could actually confirm 3 attacks from your teammate, since every stage of the animation reapplies hit stun. And her 4 feet is absolute BS.
So the For Honor North American clan lore goes kind of deep. It's kind of like the story mode of For Honor, but it's actually cool. Lots of clans, communities trying to make something out of For Honor back in 2017 and 2018. Call of Duty clan surprisingly came over and tried to do something with it. The biggest clan at the time was Darth, LOF, and Holy. There was a lot of communities trying to label themselves as clans, but they lacked the GT requirements, they lacked the organization. The Kingdom of Ashfeld was a community I almost joined back in 2018, early 2019. I tried looking for a good clan. None of them really stuck, but finally I saw Holy and finally decided, sure, I'll join these guys, see how it goes. We played a lot of For Honor, hosted a lot of tournaments, hosted a lot of the events and stuff. We had a lot of activity, had a lot of traffic, and we did cash prizes many times. We did like a $400 cash prize tournament at some point in 2020. After the years went by, Holy maintained its momentum, at least in North America, right? We really just used the Discord, Twitch, other social media apps to keep in contact, organize events and tournaments, games throughout the years. The fact that a lot of us played competitive also helped with a lot of members staying. I would have to say LOF, Exiled, and Darth, they had like about 30, maybe 40 members max at their highest point at one time in For Honor. In Holy, we had 87. We didn't start losing members until like 2024 when it was like clear that For Honor was just, you know, Exiled still walks around a little bit. Jarl isn't really a thing anymore, and LOF eventually got disbanded from internal issues. Darth was kind of the same way, not really from a leadership perspective, but more like an activity. A lot of people just kind of start branching away from For Honor. Holy right now in 2025 we still have about 50 plus members, and a lot of them do still play For Honor, including myself. We got Holy Jamma, which is top 5 Shigoki on Xbox. Holy Ghost, which is a really good Grandmaster player. I'm number 1 for Warden, obviously. And we got a couple other people that got really high on Grandmaster leaderboard. Holy Chad got, I think it was top 5 Warden in Australia, which was impressive. Holy Elite was also number 7 on Xbox for Warden. Fire Priest got up there for Black Prior. We got really sweaty on For Honor, you know. The lore in North American clans does go deeper. Like I can go into like, you know, events, the beefs along the way, the problems that we had, but that's more the general highlight of what made us stay and what ultimately caused us all to leave. It's just the lack of content, lack of activity and care from the devs. But during the first 3-4 years of the game, it was popping.
So the For Honor YouTube scene has been very samey, I guess I want to say, especially for the newer content creators. I know the game is kind of in a content drought, so I highly respect any and all YouTubers like Havoc, Jondaliner. Those guys are like my idols. I've been watching them since I was a kid in high school. When it comes to the people that are trying to break through, I feel like they all try to do the same thing, which is try to paint this game as a toxic cesspit of racism and hate. When in reality, it does exist, don't get me wrong, but it's not to the degree that they put out there. Some people just have bad games, and sometimes they get angry and say some things. Now, they say some really crude things. I think, yes, they deserve to be put on blast. But if someone just gets mad at you and says, oh, you played really lame, that's really stupid, this character's dumb, that's not them being toxic, that's just them being frustrated. To sit there and kind of throw stones at them for something you probably have done yourself really isn't healthy. And I think that just overall, you have to remember that YouTube is the main source of advertisement for a game. So when everyone's jumping in and showing that everyone's this mean cesspit of hate, no one's going to want to play the game. So I think as a collective, we need to try to push for more positive content instead of putting people on blast for even just the smallest things like rage quitting a game. If a game's not fun, why would you play it?
With the Hatuns having claimed victory over Horkos, the time had come for their gradual takeover of Heathmoor. However, a large part of waging war is to deal with the captured enemies of your army, as well as entertaining the troops to boost morale. Gul'Jin had a unique method of achieving this. By constructing a coliseum, she would have her prisoners fight in blood sport to the death for the adoration of the crowd, and in this way removing prisoners from her care and also lifting the spirits of her soldiers. One such prisoner was the gladiator queen Calliope, a defiant and unruly warrior who resisted Gul'Jin with a passion. Gul'jin became so frustrated with her that she often tried to fix matches and cheat to ensure that she would die, although she always seemed to come out successful no matter the trial. So now, Gul'jin's new plan is to partner Calliope with her other most notorious prisoner, Astria, in the hopes that both would fall together. The favor of the crowd is fickle. Lose its favor and you are doomed to fall, but gain it and you shall ascend.
Starting in year 9, Ubisoft revamped the menu interface. Now you don't have to open the faction war anymore to select a game mode, pushing the faction war away to its irrelevancy, like it deserves, as the game has far progressed away from the whole Knights, Vikings, Samurai premise. We also saw some minor changes for several heroes. Aramusha's heavy finishers are now unblockable, how its dodge recovery got nerfed, so it can chain his lights into heavies now, something that he couldn't do on release for some reason. And most importantly, Vigi's lights are no longer enhanced, kicking her out from the top 3 in duels. This season we saw a 2v2v2 Gladiator Arena event be released. It's an elimination game on the Viking Arena map, but with 3 teams. Usually how the rounds would go is 2 teams battling it out, while the third team stays away and kills whatever team won that 2v2. It was fun however, even I played it, and the Gladiator skin was pretty cool too.
When I first started playing ranked, it kind of meant something a little bit more because there wasn't really an established comp scene, I feel like, at the time. So I guess there was more like pride to be taken in your ranked, and especially way back in the day around like year 2-ish, the ranked tournament system, that was really fun. And I think that was the only thing that Ubisoft has actually done that's good for ranked.
You know, what's funny was For Honor actually used to have Ubisoft hosted tournaments. In the middle part, there were none. The beginning, there were huge ones. And now they're starting to get big again in these last 2 years. You know, there was the big stink that For Honor had at EVO where, you know, that guy cheesed his way to victory. It kind of killed the comp scene from Ubisoft. They stopped investing. But a lot of people still believed in the potential of the game. And Ubisoft originally thought they had duels for, like, competitive. But then the competitive community started in 4s.
Fasting forward a few years, it seems like every single year ranked duels becomes more irrelevant, and the fact that it's been in beta for almost 10 years, it really speaks volumes about the developers' negligence toward it, and completely ignore the game mode and completely ignore any issues around it is just really frustrating, especially. And a skill point issue where I have to wait 10-15 minutes for a game, and for them to just give me 50 skill points for beating a silver player, and it's really sad to see because I feel like this game mode has a lot of potential.
What we were seeing was monthly 4v4 tournaments for money. At this point, duels were not considered competitive just because of how reactable the game was at this point. This is before the CCU update. PlayStation had their own thing while this was all going on, but the top PlayStation players were leaving, buying Xboxes, and then joining the Xbox competitive scene. That's how dead the PlayStation competitive scene was and how alive the Xbox One was. And that lasted for, I want to say, another 2 years.
I really feel like they could have added something, a more advanced ranking system where at the end of the season you get rewards for wherever you place. Maybe adding back in tournaments or adding in more organized 1v1s, you know, like stuff like that. Like I have so many ideas on how they can improve it. But another thing is that with ranked becoming more and more dead, it makes getting whatever ranked you get less impressive. Like I don't associate your rank in ranked with nearly any skill at all. I mean, obviously if you get Grandmaster, I mean, you're probably a pretty decent player, but there's just not really any skill correlation anymore just because of how dead the game mode is. And now you just look at the leaderboard, the top 10, like 8 out of 10 are scripters. It's just not even impressive anymore. Like, it's just a grind. It's not even like a sweat fest. And like, I'm not trying to like say like, oh, it's because I'm so good. It really isn't. You know, you ask any of the highest level of players anymore about whether they think ranked is a deterministic of skill, and it's just not. And they have not put any effort into actually fixing the game mode as well as the issue with scripting.
You had CCU happen in there, and then finally there was crossplay. You would start to see duels specifically from Xbox because PlayStation died explode, and because duels exploded, it created more 4s and 2s competitive players. Just that's the pipeline. You go duels to 4s. Then is when the fan-made tournaments start. I start doing the Duel League. A year later, Walush starts doing his thing. 1v1s became the gateway into competitive. I'm gonna be real. That's what happened.
I feel like, especially people that aren't familiar with For Honor, they see these videos, #1 rank, you know, people look at that and they associate that with being the best, and it's very unfortunate because it's just not an accurate representation of how good someone is, you know?
There's a guy named Jesse who also goes by Only Orochi who made his own league for a little bit, and then boom, like wildfire. Tons of people started hosting their own duels on the scene. I think that was kind of the powder keg that ignited all of these other small tournaments. I remember Wooly started making 1v1s, and then he really found his niche in 2v2s. Every other guy, whether they were a content creator or they were a competitive player, all of a sudden you started 1v1s, 2v2s, 4v4s. You know, that's what started it. There was a huge explosion. And that's how it's been for the last 2-3 years, man, is just tons of these little tournaments. They pop up like flies or like weeds. And it's awesome, man. It's cool to see the passion of this game continue to grow. But yeah, that's kind of the history in a nutshell of all those tournaments, man.
Horkos is now a fractured organization. With Astria imprisoned, the leaders of Horkos are now struggling to figure out what to do. One last hope they cling to is the Horkos Treasure, a collection of gold and treasure saved up from their invasion of Mesoamerica that they might use to bolster and rebuild. Left in the guardianship of Vortiger, it was meant to be safe until Captain Coalheart, the notorious pirate, found him. The two dueled for the plunder, and Coalheart proved too much for the Black Prior. However, before Coalheart could claim his prize, he was ambushed and interrupted by Ilaria, the Virtuosa. Ilaria was once a crewmate of Coalheart, learning under him and serving as his second, but now she surpassed the old man and is ready to prove to him and to the world how masterfully skilled she is by defeating Coalheart and absconding with the treasure. Whether it be against fortune, against Horkos, or against our past, truly this would become a battle of defiance.
Virtuosa was probably one of the hypest releases we've had in forever, because she is a rapier hero, and the community wanted one for the longest time, and people loved it. People loved like the energy you got from her. Cool, young, energetic rapier hero. I think the issue with her is when she was actually released and her gameplay was shown, she unfortunately has a controversial style of gameplay because she has a stance where she is immune to pretty much all attacks except undodgeables and guard breaks, of course. And people don't like that. People don't like the ability to essentially be invincible just by standing there. You're forced to play her game if she gets into stance, because she does a lot of damage, and it's hard to actually hit her. If you guess wrong, you eat a lot of damage in most cases. Playing her, she is extremely fun. They gave her 3 stances. One was a duel stance, one was like a team fighting stance, and one stance was for ganks. And it was top side, right side, and left side if you were in your stance. The top part gave you unblockable heavies as well as quicker lights. The right side stance gave you hyper armor heavies and crushing counter lights. And the left side gave you really high damage heavies, poison lights, and a bash that was like a pin that did damage. Pretty sick design, similar to Aphira release. While Aphira's I felt like were more just different forms of offense, this just seemed to be more of different types of fighting styles. But at the end of the day, she still has that problem where she can essentially babysit gank, as the community calls it, where if you're in a 2 versus 1, she can just choose to interrupt with really quick attacks. If the enemy does anything to attack your teammate, you can usually pull it out and punish them for attacking your teammate. If they try to attack you while you're in that stance, she can do her counter, but if they try to guard break her, then your teammate can save you pretty easily. So she is dangerous in a 2v1, or if there are multiple virtuosas, if there's 2 versus you, it is an almost unwinnable fight without some sort of undodgeable.
After years and years of Ubisoft removing stamina damage from For Honor, this season saw the final nail in the coffin for the last stamina bullies left. As all stamina damage outside of guard break throw was removed from the game. This was a massive blow, especially for Black Prior, who's seen everything that made him viable be systematically removed from the game over the years. We also saw a massive buffed pirate, probably to celebrate her second skin, which makes her look like an actual stereotypical pirate. Her unblockable soft feint to guard break now has a later parry window by only a few milliseconds, but what that did was make the attack unreactable on flash on PC, which is a massive thing, kicking her from the bottom tier for PC players to the best duelist in the entire game, with a simple 33 millisecond change on her unblockable. Besides that, we saw some more minor changes. Some bashes no longer chain on roof anymore, a lot of bug fixes, and some attacks becoming a few milliseconds faster, but nothing really noteworthy.
If you really think about it, the deciding factor that allowed For Honor to not only compete but also thrive in a market that is heavily dominated by other well-established studios is its stance widget system. This game puts a lot of emphasis on reactions and their ability to gain and maintain momentum. The depth For Honor reaches with its 38 unique heroes is just unimaginable. From situationally specific punishes to matchup specific counters, the list of things to master when it comes to combat is never ending. Another aspect that differentiates For Honor from other fighting games is the ability to face off against more than one opponent while still maintaining the core concept of combat. With hero-specific feats also being sprinkled into the chaos of 4v4 game modes, there are numerous moments that happen seamlessly in the flow of a match, which can't be compared to any other game. The feeling of coming out alive when outnumbered by multiple opponents is just bliss. The feeling of performing the perfect gank also can't be compared. For Honor also nails the setting. How much creative freedom you have when it comes to looks and executions truly elevates the game above any of its competitors, if not even most games in general. For Honor is a game that creates a feeling while playing that just can't be mimicked by any other. Sound design, optics, and gameplay flow perfectly into each other, making For Honor into a truly unique game.
Long ago, when the samurai and the Maya were still young and coming into their new home, there was a fortress known as Castle Chiyo, a place of great importance to the samurai as it carried the legacy of their people. But where greatness dwells, there will be those who seek to claim it. While its daimyo was away, the castle was besieged by Katsuo, the greedy daimyo seeking more power for himself. Lady Saori, the wife of the Chiyo's daimyo, tried to rally a defense, but was overwhelmed and defeated. But not before a darkness awoke within her, a powerful and ancient evil known as the Jorogumo. Giving in to the darkness, Saori became the mother of yokai and destroyed Katsuo's army, spreading her taint across the mire. Thankfully, the return of her son Yoshiro, along with his family heirloom, the Momono dagger, proved to be the necessary salvation their land needed. Wielding the dagger, Yoshiro slay every yokai he met, including his own mother, in order to save the mire. He managed to seal her in a cave, blocked away by special seals to make sure that she never got loose. Meanwhile, he was forced to deal with awful corruption, a price paid for the use of the dagger. Though this story is from the ancient past, its meanings resonate in the here and now on how pride, vanity, and greed are all a man's downfall. As a storyteller and a writer, the lore of For Honor is what really captivated me. I love history and I love stories, so getting to explore why these three factions, the Knights, the Samurai, and the Vikings, were fighting was what really sold me. I know for many, lore isn't all that important, but I will always attest that without a reason to fight, the game would not be as engrossing. That isn't to say the lore has always been good. It has moments of brilliance and moments of mediocrity, and I'm woe to confess I've seen far more of the latter than the former as of late. I personally believe that Year 3 was perhaps the true epitome of strong lore from For Honor, showing such a clever form of cause and effect, how each season a new character and event flowed into the other, creating a domino effect of events, characters, and stories. But on the other hand, the inclusion of some of the Outlanders like Aphira and Ocelot all felt disgustingly similar to me. Repetitive instances of Horkos doing something evil to an outside culture, only for that culture to arrive for revenge, but not cause any meaningful change or impact on Horkos outside of the arrival of a new hero. There didn't seem to be any stakes or weight or impact during those seasons, and it was felt by myself and many others who appreciate lore in writing. Look, I'm a storyteller before I'm a gamer. I make a hobby out of telling my own stories within the world of Heathmorn, and I don't say this to brag, but rather to make a point. The world of For Honor is a perfect setting to create incredible stories on the macro or micro level. The lore of For Honor can be as rich and as beautiful as the writers are prepared to reach. I want to see this lore reach the stars, and I pray that it will, because it's too good a setting to let it fall by the wayside. But that's just my thought on the matter. My name is Raven Knight, and that was the lore of For Honor. Thanks for listening.
This season, Jormungandr's damage got slightly buffed, Revenge got slightly changed, Conqueror finally got a wall catcher, and the spider event came back, together with a Nobushi skin. And that's it. We have reached the current season. As of time of recording, Year 9 Season 3, the 35th season of For Honor. Ever since release, people have been talking about how the game is dying. A new For Honor killer was popping out pretty much every year now, and yet, almost a decade later, the game is still alive, with regular content, a tight-knitted community, and still new players joining and learning this game. The reason For Honor refused to die is simply that there is no alternative to it. Many games tried, but nothing gets close to the combat style that For Honor has.
In the end, despite everything that's happened to For Honor, with games releasing like Elden Ring, a lot of people thought that would kill the game, more or less. For Honor's went through a lot of ups and downs. I feel like it's mainly downs nowadays. But either way, For Honor will always have a fan base that is dedicated to it, and Ubisoft will hopefully continue to provide updates as long as it has such an active community as it does now. And I highly doubt any game will be able to kill it unless they release a For Honor 2. That would kill this For Honor.
This game, I do see potentially making a second game. I don't think this game, specifically just For Honor 1, will last past 10 years. I think 10 years will be the mark, and then they'll probably announce sometime soon that they're going to make a second game and start either from the ground up or just make a complete revamped version of this game. Because this game did not perform bad. Like, everyone over the years is like, oh, For Honor's going to die, For Honor's going to die. I mean, people have been saying For Honor's going to die, like, for 9 years straight. It's like, we're in year 9, and this game still isn't dead yet. I mean, it's not the giant player base that, like, Call of Duty or Marvel Rivals is, but, you know, it's still got a consistent community. I mean, I'd say there's probably about 10 to 15,000 players still on this 9-year game, which is still not bad. Still pretty good numbers. But yeah, if they made a For Honor 2, you would get so many people that used to play the game coming back, and a bunch of new people that have never played the game before. I'm excited. I think everyone who still currently plays this game would play the next game. So, yeah, just looking forward to what they do in the future.
For Honor is a fighting game like no other, that in spite of its flaws and critics, survived for a decade and counting. It's by far my favorite game of all time, which is why I invested so much time and effort into this project, because there's just so much that happened and to talk about, which is why this video is 4 hours long. No game is eternal. For Honor is gonna die one day, and I doubt any game can replicate it. This is why I'm thankful for every win and every loss, as I know there will never be another game like this. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this collaborative effort, and I'll see you on the battlefield.
Ein geheimer Fuß und weiß, wollen wir feiern